Nerdrotic.com.
Welcome, travelers, to the fringes of reality, where the strange and mysterious meet, and the thin veil between fact and fiction is torn. Welcome to the Forbidden Frontier.
Oh, listen to that lovely crowd. So beautiful. And they're so good, they stop applauding. Let's do it. They did it again. Oh, love you. So happy to be back. This is going to be a good show. This is why I wanted to do this. And it's so I can fanboy to my rock stars, and we have one of them here, and I'm glad you can all join us. Mr. Andrew Collins, how are you?
Good day, folks. Obviously late over here, but not late enough, so we're good.
So hey, thanks for staying up for us. Well, we finally caught up on that ridiculous daylight savings time, which I hate, but it's a fact of life, and that's good. We have a lot to talk about. Eventually we'll get around to, we just went on a tour to Peru, and it was like our first tour. It was the first time I saw megaliths. Andrew goes on a lot of tours, and we'll get to it later, but like highly recommend you save up and go on one of these. It's a life-changing experience. It's once in a lifetime. It's worth spending a few bucks on. It was amazing, and I can't wait to talk about. This is why Ancient Civilizations is better than UFO, because they actually find stuff. UFO investigations, they actually find stuff. They find new information, and we're going to get a bunch of it. Andrew's got a new book out that we'll talk about, and all of that. Hello, Xray girl.
Hi. I speed read. I don't know the book.
Read. It's good,
and I feel like the book has so much information. By the way, thank you for putting that all together. I like finding links between things, and the way the book goes, it's very interesting. I need to read it at least 3 more times, at least. But it's a good read, honestly. But I was told that I do have to say one thing. Thank you to the Mrs. Nerdrotic. Just highlighting Cosmic Summit. There is an affiliate link below. So if you're interested in going in person to lectures, check out the link. It's in June 20 to 23rd.
It's going to be UFO and Ancient Civilization. George Howard's going crazy on this one.
Yep. Yes. So you're interested, because we'll be there. We'll be there. So.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there. And Adam Crigler, how are you, Papa?
I am doing well. I slept fairly decent last night. Andrew, I have a newborn. He's 2 months right now. So, the sleep, it's there. And but it's all right. I love ancient civilization stuff as well. I was more into that when we started the show than I was the UFO side of things. So, Karahan, Tepe, and like Turkey in general is one of these places that I've just been infatuated with since I heard of it, and this has only been a couple years for me. So having you on the show, someone who's been going there for decades now, is very exciting for me. So I'm really grateful that you're here, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
I'm happy to be here too.
If you're in the chat and you think I might recognize that guy, he's been on a lot of History Channel stuff, a lot of Ancient Aliens. He's part of Megalithomania with his friend Hugh Newman, is a good dude, a prolific author, and a Göbekli Tepe OG. One of the first people who was there. Oh God, they found it back in the 90s, but you were there early, especially with Karahan Tepe. You were there. I remember you posting pictures on your channel and stuff before any of it was dug up. How long have? Well, let me back that up. There's another question I want to ask. Sorry. See, this is why I'm not very good at this. But What got you into this in the first place? What sent you down this rabbit hole?
Well,
Good question.
I mean, probably Eric von Daniken books, really, and watching TV series like Thor Heyerdahl and the Kon-Tiki, you know, going across to Easter Island. I mean, back when I was a youth, I really wanted to go to Easter Island, and I wasn't that interested in the pyramids or anything like that. And I will be going to Easter Island next year with Hugh and one of our tours. So you know, that's cool. That's a life achievement. But obviously, it was Eric von Daniken books, and yeah, just general Earth mystery stuff. John Michel, you know, books like View Over Atlantis, you know, all about the megalithic cultures of Britain and its connections with Atlantis and stuff like that. And I just started getting involved. But I was also heavily into UFOs as well. I've written various books on UFOs like Quest, the Circle Makers, Alien Energy, stuff like this. So I sort of emerged out of that, really. And I think one of the books that made me realize that I could write books on ancient history was The Orion Mystery by Robert Bauval. I mean, it's a brilliant book. I don't agree with everything he says, but he was a non-academic, and yet he wrote this incredible book about ancient Egypt. I just thought, well, you know, non-academics can write books like this and you can achieve something. This was even before Graham wrote Fingerprints of the Gods. So, you know, I obviously gorged The Orion Mystery. And it was at this time that I first met Graham for the first time, because he'd just written a book called The Sign and the Seal about the Ark of the Covenant, you know, going to Ethiopia. And I got him for our conference there, you know, the hybrid version of which was this last weekend, called Origins, which you and I do. And Graham came along and talked about the Ark of the Covenant, and he rang me up, you know, the next spring or whatever it was, and said, please, can I come back? I've got these, you know, brand new theories about an ancient civilization. And, you know, you don't have to pay me. He said, just come along. And he said, you know, I'll just come along. I said, yeah, of course. And he turned up with Robert Bauval. So we got 2 free lectures. And this was the first time, really, that he was airing the material that would eventually come out in Fingerprints of the Gods. So, I mean, I've known Graham for 30 years. I've stayed at his house. He's a good guy.
Yeah, you've written articles for his website, even one recently.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
it was all through the month. So, you know, we've supported each other over the years, really. So, you know, as I say, I mean, I don't agree with everything that Graham says, but hey, you know, if everybody agreed with what everybody else said, then we wouldn't get anywhere, would we, really?
No, we wouldn't. Well, I appreciate the angle you take towards things, because it's I don't know if this is even the right word. It's a little more esoteric. It's a little more thoughtful, and you look at things a little different. And I think we need that in this field. And as long as, well, most people are getting along, it's good. Robert Bauval, I met him at Contact in the Desert many years ago. And I was this back when I spoke. I was like in the corner smoking, and he just walked up to me. We talked for a half an hour. He was like the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah,
I miss him. I know he's not on the on the scene anymore because I think health, but yeah, I miss that guy. So that's what got you that. Well, you know, I kind of went the same route. Eric Van Daniken, Zachariah Sitchin. We had a show in the States called In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. And that, like, I watched that as a kid and just ate all that stuff up, and that's what got me in it. So what led you towards Göbekli Tepe in that region? And
well, it was a book I did called From the Ashes of Angels. It was published in 1996, and what it did was to look at all of the myths and legends of the Middle East and Near East relating to the Anunnaki, the Watchers, the Nephilim, the Immortals of Persian tradition, and to show that these were not mythical beings. They were actual flesh and blood human beings that were being remembered by the cultures in which they mixed, basically. In other words, you know, that these were some kind of shamanic elite or prime movers behind the foundations of civilization, that they were the ones that kick-started civilization somewhere. And I predicted that it would be found to the west of Lake Van, so between there and Shanlurfa, because all the evidence suggested that they were in that region. And of course, this was before, you know, Göbekli Tepe or any of these Tash Templar sites were found. And the book was published in 1996. It reached number 26 in the Times bestseller list, which was fantastic. Graham did a nice testimonial for it. He loved all that material. And thereafter, basically, it got read in Turkey. The only problem was that it bigged up the Kurds. I mean, it had quite a lot of material on the history, the culture, mythology of the Kurdish people, and I also dedicated it to the Kurdish people, which was very honourable, obviously. But it's a little bit like, writing a book on Chinese history and dedicating it to the Free Tibet movement. I mean, it's going to cause huge problems one day. But I never thought it would come back and bite me. But eventually it did, and the book eventually came out in 2002 in Turkey, and eventually they banned it. Basically, they banned the book in the country because of its Kurdish content. I will bring out another more watered down version of it eventually, but that was into the future. But as far as Göbekli Tepe is concerned, it was discovered in 1994 by obviously Klaus Schmidt, and he first started working on it in 1995. At the very time I was writing From the Ashes of Angels, in the dark winter nights of 1995, during the day, he was going to Göbekli Tepe and putting the first spades in the ground. I didn't know anything about that. So the book came out, and they didn't make public Göbekli Tepe until the year 2000. They kept it quiet. And then there was a huge spread in a German magazine, because obviously it was German archaeologists working on it. And I saw it for the first time, but in a way, I wasn't surprised. It was like, well, yeah, I predicted that there was almost like this lost civilization there, and now you found it. This is the mother lode, basically.
It is the mother lode, and it remains that way too. And we'll get into more questions with that. But that's now, we found out that there were so many more sites there, and 5% of it's been excavated. They're going to leave. I know there's a controversy with trees being planted on it and all that stuff. But and they're trying to preserve it.
Real quick, you mentioned that these 4 people, the ones that you said the word kickstarted civilization.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's more of a chance that they conserved what was going to be lost in an ancient civilization, or starting something new? I'm just curious what your thoughts on that is.
Well, I mean, I think we have to get into, where did all this knowledge and information come to create?
Right. Yeah.
Not only this structured society who were building, stone circles thousands of years before Stonehenge, but where the knowledge of how to carve, the knowledge of how to produce beautiful jewelry and beads and incredible stone tools and carvings that are clearly of a mythological nature, of a type that we find, from everywhere from North America to Egypt to Africa to, Siberia, all the rest of it. Where did all this come from? And of course, this is where there are various different possible solutions. I mean, some people want to go down the ancient aliens route, which obviously, I mean, I appear on the show, so, but I try and obviously, just say it as it is, whatever the truth is. Obviously, some people say it comes from Atlantis. And of course, if you're talking about Atlantis, you're talking about some landmass in, the middle of the Atlantic somewhere. Although ultimately, we really haven't got total evidence that Atlantis ever existed. I mean, certainly Plato wrote about it, and I wrote a whole book showing that it was probably connected with the Bahamas and the Caribbean. And the third route is that we've gained this knowledge from ancient human cousins like the Denisovans, obviously the Neanderthals, but particularly the Denisovans. I mean, I know that Hugh talked about this a little bit, when he was on the show. The Denisovans would seem to have been incredibly large in size, possibly the giants of legend, but they were producing the most incredible jewelry. Just look up the Denisovan bracelet, for instance. It's like this green stone bangle, beautifully polished, and it's got a hole through it that's been drilled with a speed rate that's so fast that it's comparable to a modern day drill. Now, how the hell were they doing that? I mean, nobody's saying that they had modern day drills, but they obviously found a way of penetrating rock, in tiny holes really, really fast. They also created the first bone needles, which means they created the first tailored clothing. They also would seem to have been the first people to study the sun, the moon, and the movements. And also, they passed on autistic traits to us, at least 2 genes that are known to trigger autism in us. Well, of course, with autism, you get savant-like qualities, everything from calendar counting to, being able to memorize stuff instantaneously, incredible dedication to creativity. And we didn't have that. Before we interbred with the Denisovans about 45,000 years ago in Siberia, we didn't have that. And it's my belief that the legacy of the Denisovans, probably their DNA as well, and obviously these genes were, came into what's known as Southeast Asia and then eventually into Anatolia. And eventually they created Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe. That's my theory. Archaeologists are going with it. And I can tell you now that there's new evidence coming out to suggest that peoples from Siberia were reaching Anatolia on a regular basis just before the time of this big impact, the Younger Dryas event. So, in other words, we know that people were coming from that area on a regular basis. And I do strongly believe that the founders of Tash Tepe, certainly the prime movers, were coming all the way from Siberia and Mongolia.
And I don't know if it particularly intersects with this timeline, but it is wild that Siberia, like into the Ice Age, we know that because there was mammoth there, and they found a bunch of dead mammoth there, that it was a more temperate climate, even though it's so far north. And it, the fact that there was 2 miles of ice over the northern half of the United States, but Siberia somehow was ice free and was able to support a massive amounts of life is bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre.
Yeah. Although we have to say that it was because of the fact that the ground was frozen in Siberia that we've been able to get human remains of the Denisovans themselves. That's the only reason it's been preserved across 45 to 50,000 years ago. And every single piece of anatomical remains, which is not that much, that they've got of Denisovans, says these people were big, very big.
Yes.
Whereas we know the Neanderthals were very small. We were somewhere in the middle, but it was a little bit like Tolkien's Middle Earth. Back about 45, 50,000 years ago, you had big guys, you had small guys, people in the middle. You probably even had the hobbits.
Hobbits,
that were in Flores in Indonesia. They were probably kicking around, and also Homo erectus. They were still kicking around as well, probably. So you had all these different, and presumably they got on. I mean, all right, there are probably skirmishes here and there, but there's no evidence really that there was mass. Genocide of these early humans or whatever. So we obviously interbred with them. And of course, that's the way that their legacy is given to us. And we then carry that to other parts of the world,
Are these the same people that in one of your talks on megalithomania, you reference the statue that's holding his member, and the giant head, his will. Yeah. That's not the part anyway, but you there's a group of people that you say, I think you actually show like a computer image of them.
Yeah.
Is that who you're talking about right here?
Well, I mean,
it could be.
What you're talking about is what was found at Karahan, yeah?
Yeah. Karahan.
Yeah, I mean, Hugh and I were arguably one of the first people to actually see that. And we walked up the hill. We were with our tour, but Hugh and I sort of sneaked away to the top of the hill. And there was this guy with a gun standing there, with a machine gun saying, no photos, really, really panicking. And, we just looked down and there was this new enclosure that had just been uncovered. And, we could see this box that there was clearly something inside it that they'd covered over. And what we didn't know at the time, but I found out that night because we made inquiries, is that it was this giant statue that they'd found there. I mean, you'd probably be able to find a picture there. And I mean, the statue is 7.5 feet tall, even though it's sitting down. It was found sitting down on the bench. If it was a statue that stood up, it'd be at least 9 feet tall, and it's got this massive, giant human head. We were able to see it for the first time, you and I, and JJ. When was it? September, just a month and a half ago.
Wow,
the first time
recently.
There you go. It's the guy on the left, basically, and so. I mean, who is this? What does he represent? I mean, clearly he's holding his private parts, but that's a different conversation that we can go on to. But so who does he represent? Is he a giant? Is he really a giant? Well, he's certainly giant in size. And okay, we know that certain pharaohs like Ramesses II, wanted all of his statues to be 20, 30 feet tall, but he was obviously a megalomaniac. But this is something different. I think this is a memory of an important ancestor that was seen to be of large size, quite literally. So then you have to ask the question, does this show an Anunnaki? And who are the Anunnaki? I mean, obviously, if you're a Zecharia Sitchin fan, that they're space beings that came down here 500,000 years ago to create humans and mine the gold and take it off to the planet Nibiru. I don't really follow that. To me, the Anunnaki, by the way, the original name for the Anunnaki was the Anuna, which basically just means people of the sky or the sky people. And yeah, again, you could say, oh, well, that maybe they were sky beings, but I think it means the people that had knowledge of the sky, the astronomer, priests, knowledge of astrology, knowledge of the movement of the sun and the moons. That's what the Anuna were originally. And of course, it was Klaus Schmidt, the discoverer of Göbekli Tepe, who actually said that the Anuna, that's the term he used, were the founders of Göbekli Tepe. I mean, he wrote this in his book. I mean, he was an incredible forward-thinking man, and I think that this picture that you're showing now is the best representation that we've got right now of an Anunnaki or an Anuna.
And it's you said it's possibly, at least now, unless it's changed since you said it, the first really anatomically correct human statue to ever be found.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that there are a few, tiny little things from the Paleolithic era, but it's certainly the largest and the most anatomically correct one that's been discovered. And of course, I'm sure some of your viewers are looking and saying, why is he holding his private parts? Well, I personally don't think this is anything directly to do with sex or fertility, because you have so many of these statues where they got the hands either on their navels or around their genitalia. And to me, and this is obviously what I put in the book, is that this is more profound. I think that it's to do with, energies in the body that they would activate, almost like the Kundalini spirit of, a Vedic and Buddhic tradition. The idea of almost allowing this spirit in the form of a snake to enter into the body, to give you some kind of supernatural power. You obviously the practices of things like yoga and tantra and stuff like that were originally for that purpose. I mean, if you join a tantra group today, you're told that it's for enlightenment, achieving nirvana, which is fine. But what you're not told is that the original reason was to gain supernatural power, control over the elements, control over the animals, control over your neighbors, control over fate and destiny. And this was seen to be like a power that rose up from, the area of the abdomen upwards through the body. So, that basically represents, it says, I have control, and that's why I think that you see this image, not just in Turkey, amongst the Tash Tepe, but essentially all over the world.
Yeah.
It's more profound than simply saying, oh, he's just he's just showing off,
Or he's the Genghis Khan of the Anunnaki.
Yeah. Hope not. No, but what you mentioned is those arms to the side. I mean, if you're a Kocha, we've got all these civilization makers, and
Easter Island.
This is Easter Island, separated by thousands of years, thousands of miles, and we see all of these repeated patterns. That's the most mind-blowing thing. I remember when this hit the news last year, and we were talking about it on this show, and it was just like, what else are they going to find? This is just a random find. You know, when you went out there, you were mentioning early days of Karahan Tepe, you know, you had to walk all this way to get down there, and you're seeing tools just like the tips of the T-pillars are just sticking out of the ground. There's tools laying around they've been around for thousands of years, untouched.
Yeah,
absolutely untouched.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were at Karahan just a few weeks ago, you know, Hugh and myself and JJ's partner. And I mean, the owner of the farm, Mehmet, I mean, he actually said to me, you were the first person that ever took an interest in this site. You know, and I mean, I like that. I like the fact that he acknowledges that, you know, because I could see what was going on here. I could see that one day this would be the next Göbekli Tepe, because you could see that the heads of the stones just peeking out of the ground. But I had no idea it was going to be as extensive as it is. I mean, it's huge. I mean, and they're excavating it at a hell of a speed. I mean, they say that only 5% has been uncovered so far. But I mean, whether what 5% means, who knows? But
yeah,
I mean, they are just uncovering everything. And there's a huge conference going on right now in Şanlıurfa this weekend that is revealing all of the latest discoveries. You know, presumably the stuff that they've been keeping secret. I mean, I've read the earliest reports. They found, you know, new statues of leopards. They found vulture bones. They found fox bones. They found weird little statues with jaws of wolves in them and stuff like this. I mean, this is stuff that's being revealed today. I mean, I only received this just today. So, you know, God knows what they're going to uncover. I mean, this enclosure here, which is on the very top of the hill, is astronomically aligned to the Milky Way, and particularly the stars of the constellation of Cygnus. But right on the Milky Way, you've got this dark area that goes down the center called the Dark Rift, or the Cygnus Rift. And this has been a road or river to the sky world for cultures all the way around the world. The Maya, for instance, called it the road to Zilbalba, which is interpreted basically as the underworld, but it's not. It's like the sky world. And it's there in other countries. It's there in Egypt, for instance, the same death journey. It's there in Native American tradition. And it was there at Karahan and Göbekli 11 to 11,500 years ago.
Yeah. And so with that astrological alignment to the north, you were suspecting that with Göbekli Tepe, and you got a bunch of pushback on that until Karahan Tepe. I like how you stuck to your guns there.
I did, yeah. I mean, you know, when I first went there in 2004, to both of them, both to Göbekli and Karahan. I mean, I looked down at the stones, and they were only half excavated at the time. And I thought I was in South America. I mean, it looked like something out of Colombia or Peru, or, you know, maybe Olmec or something like that. I mean, it was completely unlike anything in Egypt, in Babylon, Indus Valley, any of these places. I mean, you know, you would think that if all of these places had a common ancestor, you'd be able to see similarities to what later becomes the mainstream art of you know, an architecture or whatever. But this was like something alien, literally. I mean, I can understand why people would associate Göbekli Tepe with aliens or whatever. This is Karahan Tepe that you can see here. I mean, you've got this rock cut architecture. This is the oldest rock cut architecture in the world. I mean, when we think of rock architecture, we think of the churches of Ethiopia, for instance. We think of the temples in places like India. But this is, you know, 9,400 BC. They were doing all of this. I mean, this is thousands of years before the conventional dates of the Great Pyramid or Stonehenge, you know, or any similar monuments like that we see as almost like the pinnacle of the ancient world and what they were able to achieve. This is 5,000-6,000 years earlier.
Yeah. And I guess the question is, I mean, there's so much of it now, and it is so difficult what they did, by the way. I mean, digging into bedrock. Yeah, it's limestone. But with Karahan Tepe, you mentioned that serpent again, and that was crazy. It made me think of Serpent Mound real quick. But like there's an area, there's an enclosure that's dug out of the bedrock that looks like a bunch of, like a bunch of willies sticking up. And then there's like a groove that looks like that you mentioned that people might think like some liquid goes down, but actually it looks like at first a sperm, but you were saying that it's a serpent.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this is interesting. I mean, this is what happens on our tours. I mean, you know, Hugh and I, JJ, can only really go so far before we sort of turn it over to, you know, the tour guests and say, well, what do you think? What do you think about Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe? And one of the ladies, you know, looked at the pillar shrine, which is there somewhere, you'll find it eventually, and said, do you think that it could be a representation of a human sperm? And I thought about this for a moment, and I said, no, it can't be, because they didn't have microscopes back then.
No.
But then as this idea just, and I thought, wait a minute, what if it's a snake? What if the actual, you know, pillar shrine, as we call it, is actually a snake head? And there's a long groove, a deep groove behind it that clearly looks like the you know, the neck and the back of this snake. So in other words, the whole shrine is the head and mouth of a snake. And it's even possible that the pillars that stick out of the bedrock could even be the fangs of the actual snake. And I mean, then you have to ask yourself, well, if it is a snake, why would you want to go into the head of a snake? I mean, what's going on there? Well, firstly, there are snakes all over the place at Karahan Tepe. Yeah, here we go.
There you go.
I mean,
there you go.
I mean, if you click through to the next slide, you'll see what the overhead looks like of it. Right, there you go. That's what it looks like, and this is what the lady was looking at, and she said, you know, do you think that looks like a sperm? But you know, if you go to the next slide, you can see what happens when you overlay the head of the Anatolian meadow viper. Now, that's a poisonous snake. It's local to the region, which is this remote Tek Mountains. And it's almost perfect. And once you see it like that, you can't undo it. It's almost like it's impossible to undo the fact that this is very likely a head of a snake. And I think the idea is to be consumed, to be quite literally or symbolically eaten by this snake. And why would you do that? Well, firstly, as I said, there's snake imagery all over the place there. Secondly, I think that the enclosures were focused upon the area of the Milky Way, not just Cygnus, but also the area that's occupied by what's known as the galactic bulge. The galactic bulge is the brightest area of the Milky Way, and various ancient cultures, I think there's probably a couple of images coming up, that saw it as the head of some kind of creature, often a snake. And they actually saw the Milky Way itself. There you go. I did this image. The actual Milky Way itself was this world encircling snake. And they would focus on the head of the snake because this was the place of contact with it. This is the head of the cosmic serpent. And I believe what was going on at Karahan Tepe was some kind of communication with an entity, a being, a god, if you like, that was represented in the form of a snake that was seen in terms of the Milky Way with its head as the galactic bulge. The galactic bulge to us, you can't really see today, but in the past, it would have been like a light bulb in the sky. And it would have looked like the open mouth of a creature. I mean, obviously, you can interpret it whatever way you want, but a lot of people interpreted it as a snake, and I think that's what was going on at Karahan Tepe.
You know, I want to add, when you overlay the snake, you mentioned in one of your lectures about the giant face on the wall, and how it almost feels like he's speaking to you. And if you look at the overlay of the snake, it's almost like it's right where the ear would be. So if you are consumed and you then listen to this figure, I don't know, I wanted to ask you what you think he's actually saying, but
well, I mean, I've sat opposite that head and just meditated on it and tried to sort of understand what the hell it was saying, but I think it would probably help if I was in an altered state of consciousness. True. I think that it would be speaking volumes to me. But I think what was going on is at Karahan is something similar to what you had at the Delphic Oracle, the Oracle in Greece, because what you had there was, a priestess whose name was the Pythia or the Oracle, and she would sit on this tripod seat, and she would take in the fumes from a dead serpent that was underground. She would go into an altar state and then proclaim stuff, but what would happen, it supposedly was the god Apollo would speak through her. What's so interesting is the way that Apollo would appear to her was as a snake. A snake would enter inside her. And I think that clearly this is not something that began with the cult of Apollo. This is something much more ancient that the followers of Apollo just took over. And it was a female cult of the snake, a serpent. And I think that something similar was going on at Karahan Tepe, that these people, probably mostly women, I'm going to say, but I'm sure, guys were involved as well, gentlemen as well. But they were quite literally getting possessed by this cosmic snake. And I mean, look, there are cults in the world to this day where people get possessed by snakes and roll about on the ground and, act like snakes. It happens in Thailand. It certainly happens in Haiti, for instance. Cults involving snakes, people get possessed. And I think that something similar was going on at Karahan Tepe in specific. Not necessarily Göbekli Tepe. To me, Göbekli Tepe is a completely different type of site. I would compare it almost to like a sort of Catholic cathedral, with loads of chapels dedicated to different saints, and people would come along and pray or do whatever they were doing. Whatever was happening at Karahan Tepe is much deeper, much darker, much rawer. And everybody says that goes there. These people were we're into some serious business here.
Yeah, well, wasn't Göbekli Tepe? Didn't they find evidence of? I'm not going to say psychedelics, but they found like of making possibly not beer but mead.
Well, no, I mean certainly beer.
Yeah,
but this is one of the things that the archaeologists there are trying to now deny, whereas there are published reports that clearly say that the residue chemicals that they analysed were most obviously those of the manufacture of beer. But what they're now saying is, oh, well, we may have got that wrong. It was, possibly something else, something much more boring, basically. But that, beer, the term ale, for instance, which we use for beer, that's an Indo-European word that has the same root as hallucinogen, basically. So it's quite clear that if they were brewing beer, it wasn't the sort of stuff you get down your local bar. It was stuff that would knock your head off and put you into an altered state. And then clearly they probably mix stuff with it. And there's mushroom imagery all over Göbekli Tepe. I wrote this years ago. You got all these snakes and all their heads are clearly the shape of mushrooms. And of course, we know that snakes is one of the first things that people see, under the influence of things like ayahuasca, for instance. I see snakes everywhere. And the interesting thing about ayahuasca, and I've not done it myself, but from what I hear from others that have, is that often they see a single snake will come up to them and they will feel that snake wants to enter inside them, quite literally jump inside their body. But because they're not prepared for it and they don't understand what's going on, they will just say, no, and they'll basically just come out of it. But what they afterwards say is, I wish I had let it in, because I get the feeling I would have learned something, knowledge or wisdom, that's what was going on here. It was some interaction, some kind of entanglement with something profound. And this, again, is exactly what I think was going on at Karahan, allowing this snake, or some microcosmic form of this snake, to enter inside the body and rise up and give you this energy, this power, this knowledge. Yes, it would possess you. Yes, you would start speaking in tongues, and that knowledge would contain anything like new technologies, innovation, art, visions of other dimensions. All this stuff I think was probably going on through these contacts, which what they believed was with this cosmic serpent.
You mentioned the religious aspect of it, and the snake and Adam and Eve story. Do you think that maybe when you take in or let the snake in, it's almost like you're being able to see the fabric of reality a little bit more clear? Because, in that story, suddenly God goes, all right, well, now you have modesty. You realize that you're naked. You see your reality different now. The Garden of Eden isn't as it once was. Ignorance was bliss. Now you see it all for what it really is.
Yeah.
Do you think could be a connection there?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this brings us on to the whole idea of the Garden of Eden and the snake and Adam and Eve and what was going on there. Well, a little bit of background. Firstly, there's no question that the true Garden of Eden is somewhere like southeastern Turkey, that area, because it talks about the four rivers of paradise taking their rise from the terrestrial paradise, the Garden of Eden, or whatever, and they could all be identified: the Tigris, Euphrates, the Greater Zab, and the Arxes. All four of them rise in eastern Anatolia. And therefore we know roughly where Eden was. And there are certain places like Şanlıurfa, which is just 10 miles away from Göbekli Tepe, that actually claims to be the site of the Garden of Eden, where God put Adam down, his soul. One of the ancient names of the place is Adama, which means the place of Adam. And obviously, God created his body from the red soil there, which is there. Obviously, they then created Eve from the rib, according to the story. Then the snake comes along. And this snake says, why don't you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and, see what happens. So obviously they do that. They, as you say, they realize that they're naked. They lose their innocence. God says, who told you to do that? Him, that snake over there. And of course, they get thrown out lest they eat of the tree of life, which and become immortal. And the snake, who's got arms and legs at this point, the arms and legs are taken away and he's forever to slither on the ground. To me, this is a memory of what was going on at Karahan Tepe, because it's in the same area. And also, in certain traditions, the fruit of that they eat is not fruit. It's not some rosy red apple. It's wheat. And the word in Hebrew, peri, I think it's I can't remember the exact word, actually means seed and can be used for wheat. The story that's there at Şanlıurfa says that when they're thrown out of the Garden of Eden and they're tilling the land there nearby, Adam turns to Eve and says, well, what are we going to plant? And she says, well, what about this that I brought out of paradise? And it's a stalk of wheat. So they plant wheat. And for the first few years, they don't get much of a yield. And then this bull comes along. So they start using the bull to plow the land, and the yield gets better. And it's then said, and this is a local ritual, that they would then kiss the head of the bull every year to give thanks. So this bull is the land itself. Even in Anatolia today, the bull is seen as the land. When it moves, you get earthquakes, you get eruptions, you get thunderstorms. So, all of this is some abstract memory of what went on there, 11,000 years ago.
Fascinating. I already wanted to go to Turkey. Man, I want to go to Turkey.
I really want to go
Come
now.
with us.
Oh, I would love to.
I
will.
Going there twice next year. So
amazing.
Oh.
Yeah,
I
that
think
sounds
we're gonna have
fun.
to go to Turkey,
We should go to Turkey, guys.
dude.
There you are. You're over
That's
here.
on the docket, I hope.
yeah, well, I know you've just been to Peru, so
Yeah.
you
Well,
you
I
have a
didn't get
bit
to
of a
go.
rest, but
So I'm actually an hour ahead of you, Andrew. I'm in
Right.
Sweden. So
I'm
Yeah.
almost ready to go on my next tour. I just need a couple more weeks at home, but I'm ready to go because
Yeah.
that was Andrew. The only thing keep me going is like I hate flying, but I kind of got over it a little bit on this one, and it was worth the trip. And Peru was amazing.
Yeah.
You talked about ayahuasca. That's a cottage industry down there now. I bumped into a guy in my hotel, and he's all, "Do I know you from YouTube?" I'm all, "Yeah." "Well, what you down here for?" He's all, "Ayahuasca." I'm all, "Yeah."
yeah. Well,
No,
I mean, I've never done it, but
Me
if I
neither.
was going to do it, I would do it with some freaky shaman somewhere in the Peruvian jungle. I mean, that's the only place I would do it. I mean, on Ancient Apocalypse 2, you know, with Graham,
Yeah,
you know, he was there
that
with
guy.
some shaman, wasn't he, in Peru? And I thought, that's the guy I want to do it with.
There you
know,
go.
He looks
Mhm.
like he's really traditionally doing it properly, and he knows what he's talking about. And if you get into
Yeah.
trouble, he's going to be able to bring you out, you know?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, because that's the key, right? Because I think it's really good. Honestly, I'm a sober guy, right? So I'm not going to do the stuff, and I'm not going to. But I think, as far as psychedelics are concerned, as long as you're in a safe environment and you're of sound mind and body, because that's very important. They aren't safe for everybody. I think it's something kind of worth doing, because I did it as a lad. I did it as a kid. I did like acid and shrooms and stuff, and it did change my perspective on life, like a lot of things, just on these dumb little trips I took on as a kid. I thought about some really deep stuff that I never thought about before, and I started looking at life a little differently. And thankfully, you know, a lot of that stuff isn't addictive, which is good, but still, as an addict, I wouldn't recommend it. But one of the good things you hear about ayahuasca is it really it's self-discovery. It's a journey. Like once you have to get past like your own stuff, and it makes you face that. And I think all people should do that. I think that's good.
To some extent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one day I might be ready for it, but
yeah,
I'm okay at the moment.
I'm good too forever. But yeah, because I heard some of the side effects, and they don't sound fun. They don't sound fun.
Andrew, why don't you break down your whole vulture thing?
Yes.
I love how I didn't realize how much of it, how different that is in Turkey. You know, the whole Cygnus constellation, and you know, the representation all around the world is eagles, and
well,
and it's so different here.
Yeah, I mean, why is the vulture so important to these people?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
The answer is that they would put the bodies out. They probably chop the head off first so that they could keep that for oracular communication.
The bodies being dead human, like they're
yeah. I mean,
right.
You know, anybody
just
that died
painting the
or
picture,
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they would then put the bodies out for what we know today as sky burial, basically. And the vultures would just come down and they would pick the bodies clean. They would take away the small bones, obviously, as part of the meat. And then eventually, the whatever bones were left, they pick them up. They might bury them underneath their house or wherever they were going to do it. So as the vultures flew away, clearly at some point, a belief began that the vultures were carrying away the soul as well. Yeah, or certainly some part of it. And they would fly off. So where did they fly to? And obviously, a belief developed that they were flying to the sky world, you know, that they were taking the souls back to the place of beginning. And the place in the sky that they seemed to be most focused on was the area of the constellation of Cygnus and the bright star Deneb. Now, this is always a celestial bird. In Europe, for instance, it's a swan or a goose. In America, North America, it's often a turkey vulture, sometimes an eagle. But in the Near East and in Anatolia, and particularly in Armenia, which, remember, in the past actually embraced the area of Göbekli Tepe, it's a vulture. In fact, to this day, in Armenia, in star lore there, it's called Anjak, which means the vulture, or it means, what else does it mean? Angel. It actually means angel, which I find really interesting. So, you know, we've known for a long while that, you know, that it was what they call a psychopomp. I mean, in other words, it either accompanied or carried the soul into the next world. And therefore, its celestial counterpart became Cygnus. So that's where they were going. And what we find at both Karahan Tepe and at Göbekli Tepe is that the axis and orientations of a number of these stone enclosures, these stone circles, are all pointing towards that particular star as it hits the horizon, either as it's setting or as it's rising. But I don't think this was a one-way thing. I think they also believed that these vultures brought babies into the world. I mean, the whole idea of a stork, you know, carrying a baby in a basket or whatever, starts off with this sort of tradition. that the birds are bringing the souls into life, and they would probably do rituals relating to this. I mean, the picture you've got up here, this is from Çatalhöyük, and it shows two things. On the right, I think it shows vultures actually pecking clean a body on the top of a tower, obviously specially made for that purpose. On the left, the vultures are, are protecting this head, and the head or skull was seen as the seat of the skull. So, in other words, when the soul left, they would see it in the form of a head, basically. So, in other words, these vultures on the left are just about to take that soul away. And I also think they probably had more than one soul. I mean, obviously, we know that, let's say, Native American tradition, they have at least 3 souls. Obviously, again, in Egyptian tradition, in many other ancient cultures and indigenous cultures, they have more than one soul. So it's not, it's not easy to explain just in terms of they took the soul away, that they've taken aspects of it, either to the sky world or to the underworld. So that's why the vulture is so important. But obviously in other parts of the world, it's a different bird. As I said, it was the swan that became the soul bird in Europe. And in Native America, obviously you got the eagle, you got the hawk, you got the turkey vulture. All of these are seen as the soul birds, psychopomps, carrying the souls. And the Christians eventually decided on the use of a dove. The dove took away the soul or brought the soul into the body.
Yeah, and then I can't help but notice that little body looks like a lot of rock art that I just saw in New Mexico here in America. And all the similarities of the underworld and the soul's journey into the Milky Way is something we just heard. That's Peru. We heard it in Peru. We hear it here in America and Egypt. Obviously, we see all these commonalities.
Well, I mean, you just got to look at Göbekli Tepe's Pillar 43. I mean, let's talk about man bags, shall we?
Yes.
I mean, I heard you talking to Hugh about these. I mean, in my opinion, and I know Hugh said the same thing, is they're not man bags at all. They're not handbags. I mean, to start off with, the handles are set to one side. And how many handbags have you got that have the handles set to one side? And there's a little creature. There's 3 handbags. In my opinion, what you're seeing here is the 3 worlds: the upper world, the middle world, and the lower world. And the actual handles are the sky in each of those separate realms or worlds. And all around it, you've got I think if your next slide, I think there's an image of it that's clear. If you can, there we go. There we go. So, as I say, they're not man bags, I'm afraid. But all around them, above them and below them, you have what appears to be the symbols for water. These like chevrons around. That's what's known as the cosmic ocean. It was out of the cosmic ocean that everything emerged at the beginning. Again, it's a belief that you'll find everywhere from India to North America to various other parts of the world, and even amongst the indigenous peoples of Eastern Anatolia today, like the Yazidi people, believe in that everything emerged out of the cosmic water. The cosmic ocean, and that out of that emerged the 3 worlds. That's what you're seeing here. The actual rectangles are those worlds. Obviously, they're not depicting them in 3D. They're only doing them in 2D. And the actual arches that over them represent, as you can see on the right-hand side, this is a schematic way of viewing those 3 worlds. You can see the sky, you can see the earth, which is the middle world, and you can see the underworld belief. But beyond it is what they call here the heavens of heavens. Basically, it's the cosmic ocean, basically, because the ancients believed that everything emerged out of that. Others call it the primeval chaos or the primeval waters. And I think that's what you're showing here. And the fact that it's all above the vulture there, who's got that ball. That ball is 2 things. Firstly, it's an abstract human soul, because that's how they represented it in ancient Neolithic art in Anatolia. And secondly, it also is what's known as the hole in the sky. This was a shamanic idea that was associated with the pole star and the turning point of the heavens, that was like a hole from this world into the sky world. And if you overlay the stars of 9600 BC, when this was created, that everything matches. The vulture is Cygnus, the scorpion is Scorpius, and you can start looking at all of the other different characters and see that they too are representative of, sky figures, constellations. So, this is what you've got here. This is a mnemonic device to teach shamans and initiates how to enter from the middle world into the sky world and beyond that into the cosmic ocean, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, I know some of my colleagues have got different ideas, and that's fine. This is just a time of discovery. So, but that's the way that we're looking at it.
Well, if we keep putting these pieces together, maybe we'll eventually get the truth. It's crazy. Below that, you have, I mean, this is something Graham brings up, you've brought up, Hughes brought it up, archaeologists kind of ignore. Klaus, you were lucky with Klaus Schmidt. Klaus Schmidt was really open-minded. Rest in peace. Sorry, he's gone. Really open-minded archaeologist, and just focusing on the skies, focusing on astrology was something that they just wouldn't do. It was a blind spot for them, or they never took it seriously. But you see how far back it's gone now. Because I mean, it's pretty clear to me. Those are astrological signs right there. Like those are symbols, which pushes the creation of those way back. And obviously something came before this. It's not like guys in loincloths just woke up one day and started carving in relief. You had to build up to this, right? And you had to be or shown from another culture. And I think that's where you're kind of going with that.
Well, I mean, what you see here with Pillar 43, this is in not just the oldest enclosure D, although they're now trying to claim that that's wrong and that enclosure C is the oldest for no good reason. But it's also the most sophisticated of the enclosures. So in other words, the oldest one that we've got is the most sophisticated. Now, how does that
Where
work?
have we seen that before?
Yeah.
And this
seems like everywhere you look, it's like that.
I mean, this 9600 BC, possibly even 9700. So this is at the very end of this dark age period known as the Younger Dryas. This 1200 years worth of ice age that was possibly triggered by some kind of cataclysm. And so where does this all come from? It's ready made. It's already there. And I think it's coming in from the east. I mean, I'm not saying that all the people involved in the creation of Göbekli Tepe and Karahan came from Siberia, Mongolia. I don't think they did. I mean, I think some of their ancestors did, absolutely. And I think they may have even retained contact with that area, via the Eurasian steppe. But I think there are other people coming up from the Levant, possibly as far south as Egypt. I think there are other people coming in from Western Turkey, possibly from the Aegean, where we know that there were seafaring cultures going across to Cyprus as early as 12,000 BC. There were probably people from the mountains of the Zagros coming in. And so you have a cosmopolitan society that are doing this, and they're achieving incredible things by working together. But there has to be some kind of prime movers holding together this society for 1,500 years, because that's the amount of time that they were creating these type of enclosures at possibly dozens of different sites in a confined area, just generally in one region, the Şanlıurfa region of southeastern Turkey. It wasn't spread into other parts, only in this area where they're doing this. And this, there must be a reason why they're doing this. And I think a lot of it is to do with the fear that if they don't do it, something bad will happen. Because you've got to remember, these people are coming out of this ice age, and terrible things happen during that. Cosmic events that probably went on for hundreds of years, linked with a fragmenting comet. That's the latest theories, as we know. Graham is promoting that idea. Obviously, Randall Carlson. I think that's correct. But what that means is that every time a comet comes into the sky, everybody's going to be worried that the end of the world is going to come. So, then these people turn up and say, look, don't worry about it. We will ensure that the supernatural creatures that produce these comets never destroy the world, but you've got to work with us and do what we say. And that includes making these enclosures in a particular way. And if you stop doing it, bad things will happen. Because remember, there was no psychoanalysts back then. All they had was the shamans. They were the only people you could go to sort stuff out. Obviously, we know the various indigenous cultures to this day. You still go to the shamans if you want to, be cured of an illness, or is it physical, mental, whatever. And I think that that's what's going on. But these people have their own motives. I don't think it was just, they wanted to help people. Once they created these, they were doing their own thing in these enclosures.
There's been plenty of civilizations that have connected comets to snakes, and that's what they consider to be what the snake represents. Yeah. So it would make sense that they, revere the comets as well as fear them, right? Like it is some sort of act of God.
Yeah. Well, one of the most common animals associated with comets is foxes and similar coyotes, similar creatures who were seen as tricksters. And the comets were seen as their tails, so that you could see the visible manifestation of them as their tail. The Maya, for instance, certainly when the first conquistadors and Catholic priests and whatever arrived there in the 17th, 16th, 17th century, witnessed ceremonies that were done when comets appeared in the sky. And guys would actually put on these dresses where they would wear fox pelts. And that's exactly what you see at Göbekli Tepe. The two huge 18 feet tall pillars in the center of enclosure D, they've got these fox pelt loincloths on there, and they've got these foxes on the side. That's the trickster. There's no question about that. And they want to appease these supernatural creatures that they see as responsible for creating these cataclysms.
Yeah, imagine the massive PTSD from living through that, whatever it was.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And it's something to even I don't know. I can't remember. Sorry if it was Velikovsky or somebody after that talked about, like, this is, we're a species with amnesia, but we also have a memory of that disaster and a fear of it.
Yeah, that was definitely Velikovsky that said that. Graham uses that term a lot.
Yep. But it was Velikovsky, yes.
Yeah, originally.
To me, it feels like Karahan Tepe is a temple of life and death, right? Where they worship both the death and life of someone passing on to fly up to Cygnus, and then the return of a birthing of a new soul onto this planet. It feels like that's where they celebrated life and death.
Yeah, although here's an interesting way of looking at this. Why would they see the world in which we live, where they could be eaten by animals every day or killed or whatever, as life? What about seeing it the other way round, that this is the land of death, and when they are reborn, they are born into life? In other words, for whatever reason, these sites are ways or vehicles, almost like portals, if you like, of going from the world of death into the world of life. And, in other words, it's not just a case of the afterlife that you go into life itself. And that's what I think is going on at Göbekli Tepe. And I have to give a nod to my good friend, David Cartwright, for coming up with that idea. She's a good friend of mine, who we took out to Turkey in March with some friends to try and get some new, almost intuitive ideas of what was going on. And that was one of the ones that she came on. I thought, oh my God, it's an incredible way of looking at it. That the world in which we live is horrible. And what they would want is to go into this eternal life, which was beauty and I suppose the idealistic way of what you'd see as heaven, I suppose.
Heaven. Yeah.
You wouldn't have to worry about getting eaten by an animal every day.
Exactly.
Life expectancy, they don't have the distractions, obviously, of modern life. And this is the stuff they would think about, all the time.
Exactly. And if you look at the animals that are carved at Göbekli in particular, most of them are very fierce, ferocious animals that either bite, kill, sting, or whatever. Why do that? Why are all these animals vicious in some capacity? It's because quite clearly, by going into the enclosures, you're evoking that energy, that feeling of, you know, of that you could be eaten. And quite clearly, the idea is to pass through that to something much more beautiful, more magical. And, you know, presumably the shamans would do that by entering into death states, probably using hallucinogens. And those death states mean death, because they would have been seen to actually die, quite literally die, and there was a chance they wouldn't come back. You know, in other words, they would overdose, is what we would call it today. Whereas obviously these people believe that once they exited their body, then, you know, a shaman to go into the next world, there is a chance that they wouldn't come back. They, you know, they choose not to, or they might get attacked by some supernatural creature or something like that. But obviously most presumably did come back, and then they would then come back into this world. That's what these people were doing. I mean, they weren't messing about. You know, when they go into these trance states, they really were traveling between worlds.
You know, the ayahuasca needs to be mixed with the like a root and then a vine or something, right? It's
Yeah.
two completely different things because
Yeah.
they balance each other out, right? How humans figured that out, who knows? Maybe
Well, I
there's
mean,
something with this venom, like the snake venom, right?
Yeah.
That snake that you mentioned, right? Maybe
Yeah,
there's like a mix with that and like a mushroom that, you
Yeah.
know, like they can create like the turkey version of ayahuasca
Yeah.
of 10,000 years ago. You know, maybe that's what this death state was.
yeah. I mean, well, look, I mean, obviously we don't know exactly what they were using at Göbekli and Karahan.
Right.
I mean, there are some grasses that grow to this day on the Haran Plain, just to the west of Karahan, that have DMT in them, you know, and just by burning large amounts of it would release the DMT. So they could get high on that. They almost certainly were using mushrooms. The beer, as we've said, almost certainly that was, you know, something that
Right,
just
that
knock
brew.
your head off, basically. And beyond that, you know, I mean, quite clearly they're entering these death states, in, you know, to quite, I think what happens is that they go somewhere and it's almost something enters them at, you know, at the same time. So it's like they're in two places at once. They're entangled between this world and the sky world, particularly the head of the actual snake itself, which I'm pretty certain that they identified with the galactic bulge. And what's so interesting about that is that the galactic bulge also corresponds to the center of our own galaxy. Now, you know, I mean, quite clearly, in theory, these people would never have known about, you know, the center of our own galaxy, but they would have known there was something special about that area, basically,
Right.
of the sky. And, you know, that this was a place of creation, if you like. And because of that, I think that they saw some kind of deity or being or something associated with it. And what we also know is that free thinkers like Rupert Sheldrake, for instance, is actually proposing that the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy is a thinking, living spirit in its own right. You know, it's
I read about
an
that.
entity.
Fascinating.
So, you know, were the ancients right? Were they onto something by focusing their attentions? By the way, the stars in that area of the sky are the stars of Scorpius, which I think almost represented the living spirit coming out of the mouth of the Milky Way serpent. The 13th sign of the zodiac, which is called Ophiuchus, which means the serpent bearer or the serpent holder, which is like this sky figure holding this huge, great serpent. And of course, Sagittarius, which is exactly where the galactic bulge is, but they're all together, basically. And I think that Scorpius was almost like the tongue. Oh, there's an interesting thing. I mean, you've heard the term speaking in forked tongue, right?
Yes.
Or words to that effect. If you look up where that actually comes from, it suggested that it's the serpent in the Garden of Eden giving this false information to Adam and Eve, which I find really, really interesting. I mean, clearly that might be a modern idea, but I think that that's almost true, that stars of Scorpius were almost like representative of this living spirit. You talked about that huge giant head inside the pillar shrine at Karahan. I think that that's it. That's what was speaking to them. that was the living spirit, the active spirit of this Milky Way serpent coming out the wall and delivering its messages in some way.
That's crazy.
So
You
cool.
know, well, in America, we have speaking in tongues. We have we have some churches that break out serpents. Yeah, there was one in San Francisco. There of all places.
Kamala Harris is running for president right now.
But no, there was one in San Francisco, right near my comic store, where they would do that in modern times.
Yeah, well, I mean, and say all you've got to do is push that back 11,000 years.
Yep.
And that's probably what they were getting up to at Karahan.
That's why I love this subject, because there are so many. We're actually getting information on it, and we're piecing together this mystery. And we get new information like every day. Like you said, we're gonna be hearing stuff this weekend. You know, you guys were there again. Tell me what that's like when you're there and you discover that other enclosure. And you talked about the guy with the gun, but that must be amazing. Like, I'm here for this right now. And you're the one who caught the alignment on the face, right? Yeah. So,
well, I mean, that was obviously Hugh and JJ.
Hugh and JJ, sorry.
But I mean, the reason that they were there, looking at Karahan at midwinter solstice in 2021 is because I'd already discovered a summer solstice sunset alignment in connection with the enclosure next to it, which we call the pit shrine, which is structure AA, and that is aligned to, as I say, the sun as it goes down at midsummer. It's perfectly aligned. But if you keep looking, 2 hours later when it gets dark, the galactic bulge is there on the horizon, and the Milky Way is rising up. That's how I started focusing my attentions on that area of the sky. I thought, this is too coincidental, and it's happening at the solstice. So obviously that's why you and JJ went there. But I mean, I've been told to be careful what I say. Let's just say our relationship with the archaeologists over there is not good. Basically,
that sucks.
I mean, if I write a book, let's say about Stonehenge, the leading archaeologists are not going to come after me, basically, or threaten me with arrest or investigation or damaging sites or whatever. But in other countries, it's different. Let's just say that. I mean, as I say, I've been told to be very careful, and I'll tell you for why. Because they monitor these broadcasts. I mean, you won't believe it. I mean, we've been followed out there. We've had secret police following us around. They know what we're doing. I mean, this sounds like paranoia, but I promise you it isn't. We are people of special interest, I'm afraid, in Turkey. And I have to basically make sure I'm not on a blacklist every time we go out there, really. I mean, I was banned from it for a while. And clearly, when my book From the Ashes of Angels was banned, because it was said to encourage terrorism. Seriously, honestly.
Wow. Jimmy Corsetti has been on a rampage. Well, not a rampage, but making videos and documenting the
I mean,
connections.
Let's just talk a little bit about that, because
go ahead.
I mean, let's put a few facts right here. I mean, it's like there's a kernel of truth with that, but it's been blown out of all proportion. I mean, let's talk about the trees over Göbekli Tepe. You know, it was said that they were put there so that you couldn't excavate and to ruin the archaeology or whatever. It's not true. It was the owners of the farm that put those trees up in around 2004. And the reason they did it is because they knew eventually they'd have to sell that land to the government. And if land has trees on it, particularly of a certain type, these were olive trees, it would be worth anything up to 10 times as much than if it was just a ploughed field. So they deliberately and quickly put those trees, and of course they grew up, and today they're huge orchards of vine trees, olive trees. So that's one. The concrete thing, the only concrete actually on Göbekli Tepe itself, the Tepe being the hill, that's artificially created, was within the bottom of the pylons that hold up the roof. Yes, there is concrete there, but they did excavations first. The walkways to it are made of wood, so there's no concrete there whatsoever. So that's been exaggerated as well. the Dogos company that basically create the Vista Center, they gave them the minibuses, the websites, and now make it charge about 25 euros or whatever to get in. I mean, yeah, they are connected with the World Economic Forum. We know this. I mean, they're a prominent member, but so is Coca-Cola or Google or anybody else. The World Economic Forum have taken an interest in Göbekli because it obviously does point to the foundations of civilization, and they obviously want to take civilization in whatever way they want in the future, as we know. But so, yes, there's a core of truth in this. Oh, the other thing about stopping excavations for 150 years, that's not true. And what's interesting is that the Jimmy Corsetto videos may have triggered them into now opening new areas next year. Not
good
in the enclosures that they're looking at.
I think that's what Jimmy's point, what he wanted to do, was to shine a light on it and get more eyes on this.
Absolutely.
And I think it worked.
It did, but it seriously pissed them off. I tell you. I mean,
Jimmy's good at that.
Yeah,
I believe
not
that.
Happy bunnies over there with the alternative community.
No, but like we just saw with Graham, it didn't hamper his special, but it would have been nice for him to go to the mounds, and they wouldn't let him go. Here in America, like that's ridiculous. So I completely believe people are following you and keeping an eye on you at all times. Because you're getting traction, you're getting more attention than they are there, and because they are so locked into the academic way, which is just tunnel vision basically, and you're just writing a book. How many people have written?
Unfortunately, they want to control the release of information, and imagery. Like photographs or videos or whatever. They want to be the only ones that do that. The problem with that, I mean, that's fine, providing that they give you press releases on a regular basis, which they do. I mean, some of the latest discoveries, that are quite new, and they do press stories that go into the Turkish press and then make the world press. But as far as books are concerned, those books could take 10, 15 years. Whereas obviously I could write a book in 6 months. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what they don't like. So quite clearly, my book on Karahan Tepe, which clearly is the first book on that subject.
That's what I was going to ask you. That's what I was going to ask you. Has anybody else written an extensive book on it?
No. And I mean, that's not simply because it's flavor of the month. I've been going there for 20 years. I mean, as I said, I went there. I just heard about it. I was in the area in 2004. I'd been to Göbekli Tepe. And I was at this ancient city called Haran there, and these kids came up and wanted to sell me this second-hand copy of a little guidebook. So I looked at it, and so I gave them some money, and I flicked to the back, and there was a picture of a T-pillar with a snake going up it, and I thought, oh my God, where's that? And it said it was at this place called Karahan Tepe. So 2 days later, we're in the Tek Nampins where we were told it was with a driver and a translator just trying to find it. I mean, they wanted to just give up. It was hours, and eventually a guy on a tractor pointed in the direction. We went over there, went to this farmhouse, and a little boy came out, and they talked to him, and he just pointed south at this hill, this limestone hill, and walked towards it, and you started to see stone tools around that I knew were probably 11,000 years old, and the closer you got, the more stone tools, until at the base there were hundreds of them everywhere, and there were these T-pillars that were just sticking out the ground. There were these angled, right-angled fragments of what they call porthole stones, which looked like something out of a medieval building, But I knew that they were 11,000 years old. I mean, and there were fractured bits of T-pillars, and I mean, one of them, which was like a small one, I sort of put my hand underneath it to see if there was any carvings on it, just to study it. And the driver that we were with, big burly Kurdish guy, he sort of picked it up and rolled it over, and right where my hand was this big blue scorpion.
Oh shit.
And I mean, and the thing is, it stunned you because you just think, oh my God. I mean, I could be
I almost picked it up.
Hurt, or he just stamped on it, but
you almost let the snake inside you.
Yeah.
I mean, or it could have killed you. Probably not, but I mean, and that
hurt
me, But that was almost like a strange omen because, you know, years later, when I'm looking at the astronomy, Scorpius, I mean, aside from Cygnus, now seems to be the most important constellation connected with Karahan Tepe. So that was a strange omen. That's all I can say.
I wanted to ask you, the Snake Brothers were on the show, and we talked about this whole area and how it was was it intentionally buried? Was it just buildup of people living there? And I wanted to get your take on the whole, was this site buried on purpose?
Yes.
Well, you know, you're finding these tools that have been there for 10,000 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes and no. Yes, Nesmi Carroll, the lead archaeologist at Karahan Tepe, has written a whole paper showing how that the pillar shrine and the big, what we call the great ellipse next to it, were deliberately buried under layer after layer of soil and stone, and the heads of those pillars that stick up out of the ground, they put stones on top of them, so that eventually when they reached like the level bedrock above, you could still see where the positions of them were. They were memorializing this location, and they were putting it to bed in the way that you would bury a human, really. I mean, it's the same thing. They obviously believed that these shrines had a spirit and that it had to be laid to rest in the correct way. And this was what they also believed at Göbekli, but unfortunately the archaeologists at Göbekli are now saying the complete opposite. What they're now saying is, oh, it was all just accidental, stuff just fell on top of them and it just got buried. And
that's what the Snake Brothers believe, actually.
Well, I mean, look, quite clearly, if you've got a whole load of rubble and soil and whatever, and it is piled high, yes, of course, some of it's going to fall down, but the T-pillars are all in the right positions. You know, if all that rubble, I mean, they're quite fragile, some of these. They would get broken much more than what they are. I mean, you just got to look at Enclosure D, the way that that's so beautifully preserved. And it's quite clear that it was deliberately buried. I mean, other stuff might have fallen on top of it after that, but initially I think it was deliberately buried. But this is something that needs to be pointed out. What the archaeologists are doing is almost saying the complete opposite to everything that we've said. And when I say we, I mean the alternative community has said about it. You know, I mean, I know Hugh talked about this, but, you know, the astronomical alignments, they're saying, oh, no, they had roofs, so no astrology involved.
Yeah.
Well, even if they did have roofs, they probably had holes in them and windows and just things like that, you know. And secondly, obviously, the whole thing about, oh, it was accidentally buried. That's to get out of the idea that people say, oh, it was deliberately buried for a reason, maybe another cataclysm or whatever. So that's another theory out of the window. You know, so that they keep coming up with almost the equal and opposite to what we say, to deliberately have a go at us. And it is personal, to be honest.
Oh, you're in their head. You guys are in their head for sure. And it shouldn't be that way. We've talked about it before. It shouldn't be that way. I think the Snake Brothers, I think one of the other things they said was it was sentiment that just I'd said that wrong. Sentiment that just built up, right over
from people
time.
living there.
Yeah, that's
trash.
There's a problem with that because Göbekli Tepe or any of these tepes, I mean, not so much Karahan because that's obviously built on a limestone hill, but these tepes are all completely artificial. I mean, before that they were created, there was just level bedrock on the top of a low mountain. That's all there was at Göbekli, nothing there. And then they cut into the rock, they built the first enclosures, you know, and then they build another one next to it. Then they might close that one, so they bury that one, and they create almost like a layer cake of activity until eventually you've got a tepe that's about 300 yards by 200 yards by however, I think it's about 50 feet
That's
tall.
huge.
So you know that's what you're left with, and that's all you see. And there are hundreds of these tepes all over southeast Turkey. I mean, you go through the landscape, you go along the roads, you can see there's one, and most of them have not been excavated. I mean, all right, they don't all date back to the Tash Tepeler age of 9,000 BC. I mean, some of them are probably just Bronze Age or whatever, but this was a style of living that began with these early Neolithic peoples and continued probably all the way through to almost Roman times when they abandoned that style of living, really. you know,
How far
create
back?
layer cakes of human activity.
Yeah.
How far back do you think? I mean, obviously, we found Göbekli Tepe, which is one of the oldest things that we've found. You said there's tepes everywhere. You know, who's to
Yeah.
say that there
Yeah.
isn't one that's 3,000 years older than Göbekli Tepe, right?
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
I mean,
who knows?
I mean, as a human, I know he mentioned that we were with Klaus Schmidt, and he said that they expected to find evidence of human activity going back, you know, maybe 14,000 years at Göbekli, and they may still find that, but I
Cool.
don't believe that they will find the prototypes of the enclosures that you see. I think that they have been developed somewhere else, and they're bringing that technology and that innovation to that location. So, and they're building these
Mongolia
things.
or, you know, Siberia.
Well, I think that's where it starts originally, yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, there's new evidence, as I said, that people were coming in from Siberia and the Ural Mountains, obviously along the Eurasian steppe, on a regular basis into Anatolia. And we know that there was high culture in places like the Ural Mountains that divide Europe from Asia. You know, there are things like the so-called Shigir idol, this incredibly beautiful, like totem pole that was found in the Urals. I mean, one of the various fragments of other ones that again spells out high culture. We also know that the stone tool technology, you know, the flint tools that they would make, were of a style that begins in Siberia, in places like the Denisova cave, where the Denisovan remains have been found. And it's almost like a paper trail. You can see it going all the way from there, beginning about 30,000 years ago and ending in Anatolia. And I put this in my books. Excuse me. And the archaeologists are also coming to this same. They can see it. They can see this paper trail that begins in Siberia, Mongolia, and ends there. So I think you're going to hear a lot more about that.
Fantastic.
So
Andrew, I need you to tell us your gin story. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
All right. You teased us a little bit.
There. It's probably best to try and flick through some of those from the beginning, I think, if you can find them.
Don't bring up the picture of it yet.
Okay.
Because because Gary hasn't seen it yet.
No.
Right. Okay.
So
this all happened in March this year, and this is a real genuine story. Myself and my friends, including Debbie Cartwright, we went to see this statue here, which had been discovered the previous year by a local landowner just to the south of Karahan, Tepe. Hugh, myself, and JJ went to see it. We saw it, took these photographs, and we took some video. We put it out on YouTube and that. And unfortunately, what we didn't know until we got there in March is that the authorities had come, not only seized the statue, but arrested the guy, took him off in handcuffs. Okay. Yeah, serious. And obviously he must have explained that he found it on his own land, on the hill by the side of it, where there's a whole load of caves. And so we got there in March. It wasn't there, but the guy wanted to show us these caves basically up there. And we went in a couple, but then he started getting really nervous when we approached the one that you can see here, because he firmly believed that these were haunted by a jinn. Now that's an evil spirit in Arab tradition. Okay. Yep. I mean, he really, really strongly believed this. And he actually said to us, I won't let you in. And this was all done by translating because he couldn't speak any English. He said, I'm not going to take you in here unless you prove to me that you believe in some kind of higher power. I don't care what it is, God, Allah, you know, some local God, whatever it is, but just, you know, because otherwise the jinn will get you. So, you know, we told him what he needed to hear, and eventually he took us inside. And when we were inside there, he firstly wouldn't even allow us to enter to start. Now this is one of these caves there. It's not the one that we finally go into. That's Debbie there. You've got this bizarre like pillars inside these caves. Now I said to Debbie, I said, what do you think that these are used for? And she said they're perches. I said, what do you mean? She said, for people to perch on. I said, what, like birds? And she said, yeah. She said that's what they would do. That these were bird shamans, basically like vulture shamans. And we think that some of these go back to the age of Tash Tepela. And what was so weird, if you just want to flick onto the next slide, I think, what this guy then tells us is exactly the same thing, that there were perches in these caves. And my good friend Nick there is pointing out, you know, 2 marks on the ground where the owner of the land is saying this is where these people would, you know, crouch down and perch, basically. So, you know, this was before we got into these caves. Let's see what's on the next slide. Yeah, okay. So we finally go into this cave that this guy says is haunted by a gym, and he wouldn't even allow us to go any further until he'd gone into the main part of the cave. He probably have tried with the next slide. I think that's probably him. Yeah, that's the guy. Now he is looking at what he believes is a jinn. Now we couldn't see it, but he firmly believes it's there, and he does a ritual where he kisses the earth, he bends down, kisses the earth, and he picked up some earth. And as we sort of went round the side edge, he wouldn't allow us to actually go into the main part of it. He made us kiss this earth, each kiss the earth and pass it on to the next person until we'd all done that. And he then, you know, said some chanting words in Arabic or whatever it was that he was doing. I think the next one shows us, right, there you go. So he's actually looking and pointing towards the jinn. And I mean, we're going along with this. I mean, you know, I respect people's beliefs. I can't see anything, so fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the next picture we've got there? Okay, right, yeah. So we come out of these caves, and he not only has a sense of relief, you know, that he's been able to take us in there and nothing bad's happened, but he's virtually in tears. I mean, literally in tears. So we go back, enjoy some hospitality with him, which, you know, was either tea, lemonade, or whiskey. He liked whiskey, and we stayed there for a bit, you know, and then the wind started just really coming in. It was also sunset, and I'll go back one. Just go back one for a second. And I'll just tell you what's happening. And I just took a couple of photographs on the way out. That's the guy coming down his path. That's our car. And we got out of his property. I got in the car, and my friend said, "Who the hell is that on the hill?" And so my good friend Renee took the next photograph. Okay.
Oh.
And it was just this figure, and weirdly enough, he's also, or this person, or is also in the 2 pictures that I took of him coming down his drive as the car was coming down. I didn't even realize it, and it wasn't until we got back to the hill that night. You can't really see it at the moment, but it wasn't until we got back to the hotel that evening that we just zoomed in on the picture, and this is what was present. I guess here. Go on that. Now,
what the hell?
What do you make of that? Now, that is not doctored. That was taken by a very up-to-date iPhone, and all we did was zoom in on what was there.
What the fuck?
I know.
Go back one photo.
Go back one photo so you can see. You can see like that's it.
Yeah, that's the picture,
and you can see it on the other one too. On that first one, you can see it.
Yeah,
that's a pretty big person. That's a pretty big figure.
That's a big figure.
I know. I mean, I mean, we'd been up there for hours, and the only person that had come up there was a lad from a local farm. Obviously, saw some activity going on up there. He was just in normal clothes. He was just inquisitive, and he went off. There was nobody else up there, so we send this picture to the owner and said, "Who is this?" He came back. He said, "I've no idea." And we said, "Could it be a jinn?" Because obviously that's what he believed in. He said yes. And so what next pictures have we got? I think I've just tried to highlight the fact that, you know, if that's in the picture, that figure is in the picture. I mean, my camera phone is crap, I'm afraid, so it wouldn't show the figure in the same way. I think the next one just shows the 2 pictures that I show. So it certainly shows it's there and objective.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: after Renee took the 2 photographs, it turned away and just disappeared. It was almost like seeing us off the property, so to speak, and it just
like, all right, they're
disappeared.
gone.
Now, I mean, some people said, "Oh, could it be a Muslim woman in full niqab or something like that?" But here's the thing: this was during Ramadan, and Ramadan, as you know, that Muslims cannot eat between sunrise and sunset. So at sunset, when this picture was taken, every woman would be preparing the food for their family because they're dying to eat. And I know it sounds sexy, but that's their culture over there. So there's no way a woman would be
climb to the top of a hill.
Yeah,
watching you guys leave.
Ominously.
we asked the owner. We said, who is this? He had no idea. You think he would know who was on his own property?
Well, you also would think that he would instantly go, "That's the jinn," wouldn't he? Or is that a different person than the guy who brought you in the cave?
Was, do you recognize this? And he came back, no.
Okay.
So obviously we then said, could this be a jinn? And he said yes. But here's something I only found out today because I showed this in a lecture yesterday. And stunned people, and weird stuff started happening with the electrical equipment afterwards.
Oh wow!
Something happened outside. I mean, everybody started saying it's the jinn, it's the jinn. And here's something I only found out today: is that there is a Muslim belief that jinn can only appear in physical form during Ramadan, and the reason why is because people are weak because they can't eat, so they haven't got the power to banish them during the time of Ramadan. So you can only see a physical jinn during the time of Ramadan, not at any other time of the year. And it was during Ramadan.
Crazy. And I was gonna joke. I was gonna joke, say because they were hungry, but I guess that's it.
It's kind of true.
Yeah.
I bet you're glad you kissed the dirt, Andrew.
Yeah, dude.
Well, I mean, look,
thing to go along.
This is directly above the caves that we've been in, where this guy 110% believed was haunted by a jinn. But I mean, afterwards, I showed this to someone, and they said, "This is a woman of importance," and like a jinn female of importance. And I thought, and it was the first time I actually thought that it could be a female. Up to that point, I didn't know what the hell it was. But I think they're right. This is a female. And what's so interesting is that the local goddess who I associate with Karahan Tepe is a goddess called Ishara, whose totems were the snake and the scorpion, and she is also the queen of the jinn. And obviously there's the suggestion, therefore we are seeing the queen of the jinn.
And that could be just how the camera's interpreting the jinn too. It could look completely different.
I mean,
if you're like
good point.
Look, I have no idea what the hell this is. I have no logical explanation for it. This thing was looking at us for 5 minutes at least, because I obviously took 2 photographs of it, and then Renee took the a few minutes later when we got in the car. So what, I have no idea. And of course, as soon as we started to drive off, it just turned around and disappeared outside. And yet it is large. It's very
so
large
cool.
as well.
Excellent.
Yeah, this picture you can't see how big it is, but the other picture where it's zoomed out, you can actually tell it's not standing at the very front of the hill too. Not this one, the other a couple more.
The earlier one, yeah.
No, keep going up. That one.
There
One below. No. Other way.
Got it.
There it is.
One. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here you made it actually. Good job. So here you could see that it's actually all over the crest of the hill a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a tall figure.
Yeah, that's not like some 4'5" woman. That's
yeah. And what else is around this hill? Is there a house back there? Is this just
the only thing that's there is some kind of weird satellite installation. It's just like a tower thing, but there's nobody there. I mean, that's some distance away from there. I mean, many hundreds of yards. So there's nothing there. I mean, all there is the caves. There's deep holes in the ground. That's about it. That's it. And as I said, the only person that came up to that hill, we were there for at least a couple of hours, maybe longer, was just a local lad, probably a shepherd boy or something, just coming up to see what was going on. This is a remote area, very remote. This is the Tepe Mountains, but this is very close to Karahan, Tepe.
I love the story you tell of
awesome.
the boy that pointed out Karahan Tepe is now a full grown adult and he like is kind of in charge of it now.
Yeah,
That's how
Yeah.
long you've been in there. I like that. And that was, and I know you did it like completely authentically, but like you and Hugh and JJ going there and getting to know the townspeople has been pretty helpful to you guys. You
Yeah.
know, to get because I keep forgetting the name of the site, Adam. The one that's under the town.
You're talking about Cyberge.
Yes.
Cyberge. Yeah, I mean, we first went there, a couple of years back, and it had only just been reported to the authorities. And it's in this storeroom, or was. They've now knocked down the house, and they'd known about it for generations. They'd known that there was this incredible panel of high relief images that we know are at least 11,000 years old. But these people were frightened to tell the authorities
For good
because
reason.
they knew what would happen.
Yep.
And that came true.
Oh,
And they've knocked down their house. They're knocking down virtually every house in that little village of Cyberge. And, all right, from an archaeological point of view, we need to know what's under there, of course. And they're finding a huge, great complex there that may end up being as big as Göbekli Tepe. It's slightly different. It may be slightly younger, maybe by 500 years to 1,000 years. In other words, probably 8 to 8,500 BC, maybe slightly earlier. But it's another Göbekli Tepe, if you like. But this is just one of, officially there's 12 so-called Taş Tepe sites. By the way, this term Taş Tepe means stone or stony hills. The stone, because they worked in stone, creating, enclosures and T-pillars. And the tepe, obviously, relates to these layer cakes of human activity. They're also known as hoyaks, or in Arabic, tells. And so that's it. It's like the culture that creates stone monuments within hills, basically. That's what the Turkish government want, the term to be. Some of the archaeologists won't even use that term at the moment, but I think it's pretty cool. It sounds good. So, it's a Taş Tepe culture. There's 12 official Taş Tepe sites. Most of them have had at least some excavations done, but one estimate recently was that there's at least 38 of them. And one report even suggests there could be as many as 100 of them, all within the same region.
Ugh.
Wow.
Would you call that a civilization?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, if you look up the term civilization in a dictionary, everything that's going on there suggests that we're looking at the first post-Ice Age civilization in the world. I mean, certainly officially anyway. But one of the things that's missing from civilization is a written language, a common written language. But what you see at Göbekli Tepe, more so than Karahan, I will say, is these glyphs. You see these glyphs all over the place. And there's clearly a writing system. And on these little pendants, you see more of these glyphs. And there's a guy by the name of Irving Finkel. He's a Sumerologist. In other words, he reads cuneiform.
The British Museum.
Yeah, he's a brilliant man.
Yes.
Completely bonkers, but brilliant.
Yeah.
We've had him, at our conferences. And he actually came up to me last year at the Origins conference, that we just had this year's one. He came up to me and he said, that little pendant that they found at Göbekli, and he described what it was with the glyphs. He said, that is a written language. He said, I tell you now.
Oh, cool.
In other words, and this is one of the only people in the world that reads Sumerian properly.
Right.
Yeah. I've seen his videos.
In fact, he's so cool that he actually signs people's books in cuneiform. So
that's awesome.
His books, I mean,
funny story. Xray girl might remember this. When we were in Peru, it was one of our guides. They were talking about they broke out their thread. They have their alpaca, and they're like, we can do it in multiple colors. And then she's all, oh, by the way, we did have a language. It was just symbology. It was just all symbols. So our language was, and she would, be an animal, and it would be a shape, and they'd break this all down. And it got me thinking that, well, there's probably a lot of stuff we just don't even recognize. as language.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had never heard that before.
Yeah.
And they're very proud of their Inca. It's funny, in Peru, they hate the Spanish, man. Woo.
I know.
God, they hate the Spanish. But yeah, they're very proud of their heritage, and they're willing to go pre-Inca sometimes. But and with some people, you don't want to mention that. But yeah, that just came to mind, which was,
well, yeah. I mean, obviously, I recently watched Ancient Apocalypse 2. I know you lot have as well. And I mean, one of the things that Graham said, which I hadn't even thought about, was the Easter Island Rongo Rongo.
yes,
the written script, and that this is not something that just develops on some isolated island. This is clearly something that is developed by civilization, literally. And I hadn't really thought about it that way because, I mean, some islanders in medieval times are not going to create this incredibly complex, written language and then just forget about it, basically. I mean, clearly it's come from a lost civilization, if you want to call it that. I mean, that term lost civilization is what I call a rallying banner. I mean, it's the sort of thing that's going to sell books. It's going to, be good for TV shows or whatever. And of course, we have to start asking ourselves, what do you mean by lost civilization? Is it just knowledge? Is it, is it a civilization, a shamanic civilization that almost exists on a parallel existence, a parallel world? That knowledge we're being fed with it and creating, technology, innovation, art, creativity. It's a difficult one. I mean, I would love to find a lost civilization going back, I know, 40, 50,000 years. At the moment, we've just got fragments. And I think that a lot of it is coming from our distant cousins, the Denisovans, and to a lesser degree, the Neanderthals, and possibly even Homo erectus. I mean, there could even be other ancient species of humans that we don't even know about. This is where I think we really should be looking for clues relating to any lost civilization.
I couldn't agree more. Graham tweeted out like a couple of years ago, Cave of Bones. Adam, we went over Cave of Bones. It was, on what were they called again?
The Homo Neuraldi or
Homo Neuraldi.
Oh yeah.
Naledi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they like ritualistically
right.
buried their dead, and they were like basically chimpanzees. I mean,
hundreds of thousands of
and
years ago.
hundreds of thousands of years ago, and then they found that structure that was built. That's 250,000. No, 350,000. No, 500,000 years old. Sorry, my bad. It's old.
Sorry, where's that? Which one's that?
That was in Africa. It might be 250.
I don't know exactly where.
I'll find it.
I think 250,000.
I think it's 250,000 years.
Yeah.
Okay. They found basically a hall. Like it was a roof for a town hall.
Okay.
That they found. Yeah. Luke Caverns talked about it. It's 250,000 years old, and it was a structure that they found in Africa.
Okay, that's cool.
It's crazy.
I mean, the closest that I've come to investigate something like that was the so-called Kezem cave in Israel, which is in the Sumerian hills. I mean, that's 400,000 years old down to 200,000. Constant occupation, and a whole load of firsts for humanity took place there. The first canned food, food that they were able to sort of like pre-pack and keep and put in their backs, and the earliest shamanism, the earliest like school of rock, basically, is what they described it in the press releases. Schools where people would come and to learn how to make different types of stone tools. I mean, so many different firsts for humanity. And when they actually came to try and look for evidence of who was there, they found human teeth that were identical to us. These were not necessarily Denisovans or Neanderthals. They were our own ancestors. They were doing this stuff 300,000 to 400,000 years ago. The earliest shamanism takes place there. That they found this swan bone that had been modified and quite clearly used for shamanism, to hold, maybe to gain the flight of the bird. It was a bird wing of a swan. So, this stuff goes back so far. I mean, yeah, I mean, this site here, what, 476,000 years.
Yeah. So notched
That's cool.
logs.
I'll look into that.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's in
Oh, the
Zambia.
notched logs. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that
Yeah.
site. Yeah.
It's amazing. I love it. I love it. I think it's we've got some mystery that'll never be solved in our lifetime. I'd love it for it too. But the fact that we're like, we have people like you looking into this stuff is nothing but good. Nothing but good. Thank you for being. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No. I mean, it's just a very exciting time.
Yes.
And I think what's good is that this subject is becoming popular. Amongst us, the alternative world, if you like. I think that's really cool. I mean, and that obviously, YouTube channels like your own is promoting this as a cool subject. I think that's brilliant, incredible in its own right.
I've been a fan of like you and Hugh for like the fact that you guys go into Giants and all that other stuff. I freaking love it. And there's a cottage industry here on YouTube. Channels like the Y-Files and Megalithomania, and when Graham, people usually steal Graham's lectures. They steal your lectures too, Andrew. Yeah, but there, like, people listen to this stuff at night, like, all the time. Like, it is always going on. And when I get your books on Audible, I have to listen to them 3 or 4 times to catch all the information, and it's great. And I'll go back to one of your older books. I have them all on, but his newest book is on Audible, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Please, I need to promote that, by the way. That is Karahan Tepe, which is Civilizations of the Anunnaki and the Cosmic Origins of the Serpent of Eden.
Yeah, the publisher likes long titles for some reason.
Yeah.
No, I know what it is. It's meta tags, isn't it? You know what I mean? The more buzzwords you can get into a title, the more hits you're going to get.
And I love that you do audiobooks. More of you guys need to do audiobooks, but you do, so that's good. And I appreciate you being very generous with your time tonight and hanging out with us. Hopefully you'll come back, because it's been great. It's been tons of fun.
It's on one of our tours. I mean,
we will get on one, right, Xray girl?
Would love them.
Yes.
Twist my arm. All right.
Right. I got one question for you before you go. So Kendom asks, have there ever been any plant macro or micro remains found in either one of the tepes?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of plant remains. So that's obviously one of the main areas of study right now. And at Karahan, for instance, what they've determined is that they were cultivating wild forms of wheat there as much as at least 12,000 years ago. I mean, possibly even as much as 14,000 years ago. Now, that's not to say that was all happening at Karahan, but in that area, and obviously all this airborne dust from the activity is settling, and they're analysing that. So we know that there's the Tek Mountains were definitely occupied, possibly even Karahan, from as much as 12 to 14,000 years ago. And as I said, we now know that people were coming in from Siberia at that time, on a regular basis. This is brand new stuff, not published yet, but I know about it. I was told about it, and that's going to completely blow open all of this as to the origins of the Tashtepla culture.
Now, my last question will be, is there a place where the fine folks can find your book that would be more lucrative to you than Amazon? Is there like a website, your direct website, or is it just on Amazon?
Well, the honest answer is no. But I mean, if you're interested in all this stuff, my website's andrewcollins.com. It's got everything on there to do with, I know it looks like crap, but please excuse that. It needs modernizing. It's got all the tours on there, all the links to the tours. It's got loads of articles you can read about Karahan and Stonehenge, because that's the other area that we're looking into at the moment. It's incredible revelations coming out of Stonehenge at the moment, all the details of the tours, our conferences and whatever. So, and all my links for social media. So, videos to click.
Hell yeah.
If you want to contact me, anybody, I'm here.
Awesome.
See, that's another brilliant thing about you guys. You're so accessible. I'm gonna make it to an Origins conference. Those look amazing.
Yeah, we've just had one.
Yep.
So another one next year.
Maybe I'll be at the one next year. What's your next tour? Do you know?
Next tour, yeah, Turkey. I mean, in
Turkey.
March.
Ah.
Well, no, hold on. Well, I'm going to Egypt in about a week's time with
All right.
you, and company. But I mean, I'm sure it's too late for people to suddenly drop everything and come out with us to Egypt. But I mean, why not come with us to Turkey? I mean, that's next May, and we're going over the whole country. So we'll go to Cappadocia. We'll go to, Göbekli Tepe. We'll go to Mardin, which is a beautiful city. We'll go to Konya. Probably see the whirling dervishes. We go to all these cool Hittite sites as well. So yeah, come with us. And then in September, we'll be going back out there, but we concentrate on the eastern part of the country. Go out to Lake Van and Mount Ararat and see the Ark, the Noah's Ark and all the rest of it. Yeah, I know Hugh talked to you about that. So yeah, they're good. I mean, obviously they're well oiled because we work with a great company. We've done it so many times now that, but we just love going back. I mean, I just love being out there. I mean, this year I think I probably spent about 6 weeks of the year out in Turkey. I mean, it's clearly my second home, obviously.
Yeah. That's awesome. Brilliant. And again, for any of you guys out there thinking about it, these tours are amazing. And hanging out, like Hugh's such a good guy. Like he's such a nice guy. He just hung out with us at Cosmic Summit. That was so cool. So thanks again, Andrew, for coming on. We'll have you back.
My pleasure.
Please come back.
So lots of books, man. Yes. I really do. Because what I got through was great. And I can't leave. I'm gonna go through it multiple times. So again,
I haven't finished it, and I'm looking forward to it.
It's so good.
I'm deep in it. And, it's fantastic.
He gets into it, and it's brilliant. I'm right now. I'm at the serpent part, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
so
there's lots of snakes in there. Lots of
snakes.
You got to like snakes to read this book.
Andrew, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
We'll let you go now. Have a good night, and
we'll see you out and about.
We'll see you out and about. Good. We'll talk to you again sometime.
All right.
Andrew Collins, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
That was cool.
That was cool. That was cool.
Awesome.
Thanks everyone for joining us. This is why we're doing this, by the way. We get to talk to cool people like Andrew Collins. And again, like him and Hugh are like really down to earth, like chill people. So
and they're like the lead guys doing this stuff
doing the Tepe stuff in Turkey. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like even Graham acknowledges that, like the stuff that they were doing because they got there early.
So cool.
Unlike the
pioneers.
Not all the archaeologists are bad. So I don't want to get them in trouble. But what they did is they got to know the people in the town. They just like walked around, got to know families, stayed with families, and basically showing them respect. And they got
how
access.
It should be done.
How it should be done. Absolutely.
Yeah. Boom, right there.
Because ultimately these people are proud of their culture, right? And they want stuff to find that, that was the rad thing about Peru is they were all like, this shit is awesome. And I was like, yes, it is. It's pretty awesome.
Like
fucking badass.
Our guide was like, she just needed to learn what we were interested in.
Yeah, once she figured it out, she like did the normal tour guide, and then she's like, "You guys like the rocks and shit?" And it's like, "Yeah,
okay, she really like the rocks. Yeah, we want to touch all the
rocks. We just want to see the rocks. I don't give a shit about anything else."
That's so good.
But and then she I loved her so much. I miss her. Marcia. All right, so let's get to the soups. Adam, great job, man.
Thank you.
Adam's a pro, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a fucking pro. Okay.
I love interviewing. I love it. And then when I get to interview someone that I'm that is an expert in a field that I'm interested in, it's just like, man, I'm on cloud 9.
Hell yeah.
That was fascinating.
And I was like halfway through the book. The book's good. Like this will be something I fire up when I'm on a plane or on a long drive over and over again
for the rest of your life.
The rest of my life.
Yeah.
Well, I have
exactly.
a library of like, I think it's like 20 or 30 like books in this subject, and I hit them all. Like, I just go down and just read them over and over again, because you always find something new, and they're so dense with information, and they're also like they're great like to chill out too and just go to sleep.
Sure.
And your dreams are a little weird from these books sometimes, but that's cool.
Is this
Yeah,
like
especially this one.
ayahuasca adjacent?
Maybe close as I'll
Possibly.
get. Close as I'll get.
It's the gin reaching through the internet.
Oh gosh. That
Sorry.
story could get
No, it's all
creepers, honestly.
like
I thought it was cool. I don't think it was creepy at all. I think that queen of the gin was knew the respect that Hugh and Andrew give to that site and saw that. If let's humor it, if it was the queen of the gin,
Yeah.
right? She's showing up and go,
it was
all right,
something.
I'm gonna let them pass.
Either
right?
a rock showed up
Cool.
out of nowhere, or a person showed up out of nowhere, or as a gin. You can believe what you want.
One of each three. Who knows?
It looked like it was standing on the mesa.
Bro, I've had a like exactly 160 what I forgot what it was. 164 megahertz at the Mesa.
I kind of miss them a little bit.
I miss them too. I miss Skinwalker.
Like, oh, man.
They're filming
Skinwalker.
Dude, we get Skinwalker and Clarkson's Farm like right around the same time, like in the first quarter of next year. So I'm very excited.
I love
about
that. I love that's part of our repertoire. I enjoy it.
Hell yeah. Mark Shaw has been a member for 13 months, says effing love Forbidden Frontier. Let's go. Also, hello all. Hello. Logan Miller has gifted 5 Nerdrotic Live memberships for $25. Thank you. B-Chain 315. What's up? How's it going, B-Chain, for $20? In the constellation of Cygnus, there lurks a mysterious invisible force, the black hole of Cygnus X1, 6 stars of the Northern Cross in mourning for their sister's loss in a final flash of glory, nevermore, the grace of night.
It sounds like a song.
Is that Rush?
Cygnus? It is a song.
Is that Rush?
I meant to say
2112, maybe.
When
I could be wrong.
Looking at the
been a while.
bulge,
I smoked a lot of pot when I listened to that. So sorry.
Didn't it look like? No, that's fine. Didn't it look like if it was a throne of like, I don't know, like you would think that's like the seat where the king, where like the most of the power lies, right? The center.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
to say that, but
he talked about that. But there's so many cultures that when you die, your soul goes through a journey through either Orion or something in the fucking Milky Way. There's like too many. Again, it's like the flood myth. It's like there's so many cultures that like when they told us in Peru that, oh, that's one of our myths too. I'm like, of course it is. Like at this point, in Peru, it literally looks like there was a kingdom that was destroyed. I mean, if putting it in the simplest terms, it looks like there was some sort of kingdom that had giant structures that were blown to shit. And we see remnants of it. Dude, Saxy Woman, there is no explanation for that. Those stones are so fucking big. The pictures don't do it justice. When you're standing there, you're like, no fucking way. No fucking. And then when you go to Ollantaytambo and that big wall, you're like, no fucking way. Like how? And why? Like, why would you what does this wall, what purpose does it serve? It's not a full wall. So it must be part of a bigger wall.
Yeah.
And then you see like what you don't see at Ollantaytambo, Adam, is across the hill, and it looks like fucking Gondor. There's like a giant
the two mountains,
the two like castle looking things that are built up in the wall that nobody goes to.
Yes.
And it's like, looks like fucking Gondor. Like, what the fuck is that? And that's the newer shit, obviously, over it. But it's hard to explain unless you be there. And then you go down to the bottom of the Ollantaytambo, and there's this like little market, and they're selling giant stone penises. Giant.
I think I saw a picture that somebody,
like
one of you posted.
Yeah, that's me. Sorry.
It was you. I didn't want to say
Yeah,
it.
you found it, of course.
But it was Xray.
Well, and I said Chris Moore would love it.
He would. And it was right in front of Inca Bucks, which is an Inca Starbucks that offers massages and coffee. My kind of place. Zorbu has gifted 5 Nerdrotic Live memberships for $25. Thank you very much. Zorbu, what's up? Garrett misses you. Sorry, Garrett misses. I decided to get back into making videos. It's been a week.
You do that?
I do that once in a while. So I made one. And the thing is, I couldn't be on camera for half of it because my lip was fucking ripped up. It's fine now. It's almost fine.
Okay.
So it makes it a little harder for him to edit.
Mm.
You don't see my decrepit old face on this next video, but the one after that, sure. Doing a full penguin review, chat. I'm going to do a full penguin review. It's worthy of it.
Tonight.
New episode.
New episode tonight. We're watching it right after this show, right? Xray?
Yes.
Dude, it's so good. It's so good. I can't wait to watch it.
So excited.
Oh, yeah, I got, this is weird. I've got girls at my house. My wife's gone.
Whoa.
My wife.
When you put it like that, I mean,
that's what it is. But I mean, I'm old and decrepit. And my wife loves me and she trusts me and she should.
She's like, I know it'll fall off anyway. I mean, it fell off.
No, well, nothing's gonna.
You were just in Peru.
No,
I mean, she's got big giant stone.
Like, no, I love you so much that if you ever cheated on me, I would set you on fire while you're asleep. And I'm like,
I would be very scared of Melissa.
I believe you.
Melissa scares me. Okay.
I wouldn't want to cross her.
Dude, I've seen her beat the shit out of a dude. So like you have good reason.
Yup.
No.
Beat the snot out of him. So yeah. It wasn't me, by the way.
Oh, good.
Just wanted to point that out. Right. Panel questions for $10. Hey Gary, it's the candle guy from Comic-Con. What's up? Clinging on the advice you gave me, going to meetings, not sure if I'll make Comic-Con next year. Going to be a rough next 3 years. Cheers, homie. We don't know it's going to be a rough 3 years. What you do is one day at a time. Keep going to movie. If you have to cling on to it, I had to cling on to it for a lot of years. The fact that you're going is a major victory. So good for you. Don't future trip. And it's really hard. It's a hard concept to grasp. It sounds simple. It sounds like a dumb little sign because that's what it is at AA, one day at a time. But it's actually a way to live your life. It is a philosophy that you have to embrace. And it took me years to figure it out. Like even my first run through sobriety, I didn't really understand one day at a time. I do now. And it certainly helps because we can't control the future. And then we start future tripping. And it's like, it starts building up all this stuff. We get anxiety. It leads back to going and using. It's about compartmentalizing your life and just not worrying about that shit. Like literally just turning the switch off.
Being present, mastering the now.
In the here and now. I am here with Xray Girl and Adam and all of you in the chat enjoying a show. What happens afterwards is what happens afterwards. But I'm glad to hear that you're going to meetings. So that's the best part.
Me
That's
too.
a major victory.
A quote that always helps me get through things. It never gets better, but it does get easier.
Yes. That's a great way to put it. Like life is not, life can be great, but it's not always great.
I wrote a song about that.
There you go. But what Xray Girl just said is life using fucking sucks. Absolutely fucking sucks. And just by not doing that, it's automatically better. Although you're not going to feel better right away. It's going to feel like crap. Like that's a fact.
And that's okay.
Ask Mrs. Nerdrotic how nice I was after I sold the comic shop, had to go back and work for $12 an hour at O'Reilly Auto Parts, eat all the crow, swallow all my pride and all that shit. I was a fucking asshole to be around. I don't know why she hung around even then. I was terrible. I was so pissed and bitter. But I got through it. I learned that little humble pie is good for you, or a lot of it. European folklore, snakes are the sky and land. Oldest snake, Earth Mother, swastika, found and dated 10,000 BCE in Ukraine. Well, I mean, seeing swastikas in Ukraine, you better date that accurately. Just on this one for $9.99. No, but there's swastikas here in America. There's lots of them in India. Lots of them in India. They're all over. So yeah, it was unfortunately brand damage by the Nazis.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it goes way back to well, the sky people, to talk what Andrew said, that and it wasn't, they didn't come from the sky. It's the ones that knew what the sky meant. Like think about understanding the 26,000 year cycle of the earth going through the different zodiac signs. You know, those people that understood that were able to see past their immediate little world and understand that of where they were in the cosmic scale, which is crazy to think about back then.
Absolutely.
Right?
And like, I completely understand why people like Andrew and Hugh. I should have asked. I meant to ask. I forgot.
We got to bring him back.
Got to bring it back. Or Graham, like, don't go into their full theory of what the ancient civilization was, because it gets them trapped, and like they've got so many enemies out there that they have to be guarded about that. They do talk about it sometimes, but it's not something they absolutely put in their books. And I'm sure they have an idea of what that civilization was. I meant to ask him, like, because I have an idea. If you had it, they obviously understood astrology, which means mapping the stars.
100%.
They also understood math. And so there had to be a buildup to that. And that buildup had to be thousands of years. So I think like a mother civilization could go back 100,000 years, 150,000 years.
Oh,
I think
Gary, I just watched this documentary about these ancient sites in Russia and Siberia. I can't believe I didn't even bring that up. It's these, what are the name of them?
Yeah, I know.
There's these stoneworks that are in the forests of Siberia.
Yeah.
And they're incredible, and they're huge, and they have these perfect circles in them with like these plugs. Have you seen them? Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen this?
Well, there's something like the Sage Wall in Siberia, but it's bigger. And they say it's a natural formation. Yeah.
I think I've seen it. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fascinating. It's polygonal. It's massive, but I know which one you're talking about too. They've also found henges, like earthen structures and henges in Siberia. We could have gone on for another hour about that.
We got to bring them back.
Yeah, that's another one of those places that is not explored at all. Like they know nothing about it.
Well, I feel like the West doesn't know about it.
The West doesn't know anything about it. That's a good point.
I'm sure, like China, the Chinese government, they know exactly. They're like, oh yeah, we've already documented. We know that we were not the first. We weren't the ones. Well, some people say they weren't even the ones that built the Great Wall, right? I mean, Jimmy just put a video out. I don't know if you saw it about the Great Wall.
I watch all of these videos. Like,
yeah, me too. Yeah, he's great.
I haven't seen his Ancient Apocalypse review. I got to watch that one. But hail Jimmy, we'll have him back.
Always back.
Maybe he could take a day off of fighting with people on Twitter to hang out with his friends over here.
Never.
I love you, Jimmy. I think it's funny. Thunderclad for $5. Hey, Nerdrotic crew, are you not uploading audio versions of your live streams anymore? Some of us working for folk rely on the audio format. Appreciate you. Something happened, or you must be listening on Apple. Something happened and it broke our link. So we need to, Melissa, I don't have any Apple devices. So when Melissa comes back, or I think she put the link in Discord, we'll have it worked out within the next 24 hours. And I truly apologize. But yeah, something, our RSS feed link got broken to Apple devices. So in the meantime, you can go to Audible or Spotify that aren't proprietary Apple stuff. I hate Apple, by the way, but I respect that you have a device, although I think they're gay. But I think we're still here. Let me check Audible. Let me make sure everything's cool on Audible. It's free on Audible.
Do you want me to read something while you're
yeah, here we go. There we go. The last thing we put out is hang on.
Okay.
Yeah, it works. Okay, so last Friday Night
Audible?
Tights. So, but you must be on an Apple device. So again, my bad. We're fixing it. Thank you. Go on, Xray girl.
I was going to say, Ruben Christopher Haynes has become a traveler.
Hell yeah. What's up, brother?
Thank you. What's up?
Welcome, traveler.
Toxic Man Flu has gifted 5 Nerdrotic Live memberships for $25. What's up, Talk?
Hey.
He puts up with Comics Division on a weekly basis. So you have my sympathies, little midget. Dragon Sworn $10. Alt theory: Göbekli Tepe circles were ritually buried as they fell out of alignment, and a new circle was built. I don't think that's crazy because
We didn't talk about that.
Yeah, Malta. There's evidence of that in Malta, where they didn't bury it, but they gave up on structures and built new ones. By the way, I think there's a new Wi-Files tonight, guys.
And also, I think also in Göbekli Tepe, there's different burial sites that have different T-pillars depicting different different constellations, right? The reliefs on them were slightly different. Am I thinking of Malta, though? I feel like it's also Göbekli Tepe, though, that I might be mixing up my megalithic sites. But definitely in Malta. Yeah,
Well,
I remember that.
Malta
They're
looks-
facing slightly different ways, right? As they go through the years.
Yeah, Malta. Okay, I was wrong. It was 2 days ago. My bad.
Right. I actually have it up. It's the Project NASA's secret manned mission to
yeah.
Mars. I literally have it ready. It's
Ready to
sitting
go.
here.
What?
So, Malta,
Project Red Sun is the name of it. Sorry.
Project
That's
Red
cool.
Sun. So Malta has it's eerily similar to Göbekli Tepe as far as the circles and some of the orientation, some of the stonework they look a lot alike.
Mm-hmm.
So and they're supposed to be separated by 4,000 or 5,000 years. And Malta was previously believed to not, I think it was the oldest stone structures until Göbekli Tepe came around. I think Malta's as old as Göbekli Tepe. That's my personal opinion. Jess Pena for $1.99. Happy 7th anniversary to Gojira. Long live the king. Hopefully it'll still be in theaters tomorrow, Xray Girl, so we can go see it.
Oh, I forgot we were supposed to go watch it.
Go today, but we had work to do. But if it's in theaters tomorrow, I'll go. Otherwise, we'll watch it again here. Zorbu for $15 on the problems of space flight is outgassing, which is a release of extra gases from fuel tanks. It affects the craft's trajectory, etc. So basically, Gary is technically a spaceship. Oh, awesome.
Put me on the list too.
Yeah, put me on the list. But yeah, well, gases for sure. Jose A Taco for $1. Can I plug something if it's okay? No, of course you can. Luke Caverns and the Brothers of the Serpent. Oh, you can plug this. Will be touring the Grand Egyptian section of the San Antonio Art Museum on November 16th. I am happy to plug this.
Cool.
We could put the link in the chat, please.
It's in the chat.
So there's an Eventbrite. It's free. Just sign up. I've gone on one of these things with Michael Collins with him. And there's some pretty cool stuff there that I was unaware of. So you can meet the Snake Brothers. You can meet Luke. I would go, but I'm going to be in Wisconsin. So, but go hang out with Luke and the Snake Bros at the San Antonio Museum. It's fun. It's a good trip. You just go there and hang out. Logan Miller's a traveler. Xray, blink twice if you're in trouble. She's fine. Nicholas Horton says, hail all. How was your Halloween? And most well-preserved discovery in the Siberian permafrost was the woolly mammoth from 2 decades ago. Yep. Yeah, the one with food in its mouth.
Oh yeah.
That's from more than 2 decades ago. That's from the 1900s. That's early 1900s. I'm pretty sure that's from.
You know they've found more stuff. You know,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Russian government. has found some
Our
shit
boy
there.
up in Alaska has found more shit. He's just not talking about all of it.
Yeah,
Good for him.
Exactly.
That guy's
Mhm.
fucking based. I love him so much. I want to get him on the show.
Mm.
The Raven and the Writing Desk has been a member for 12 months. Thank you. Midgard Ninja, welcome as a traveler.
Welcome,
Rook takes
traveler.
Rook for $4.99 after a long day of listening to Az and Mahler kill themselves over Veilguard. It's nice to hear about something substantially interesting. Thanks. And you can go back to Az screaming and making ugly characters. This stuff is reminding me of the cult of Thulsa Doom in Conan the Barbarian. Vapor Trails for $4.99 is because Robert E. Howard, along with most of the writers of his contemporary writers, were absolutely into the Atlantis, because the Atlantis fever was happening in the early 1900s. So yeah. So I'm sure he read all of Ignatius Donnelly's works. That would be my guess. Craig Long for $199.99.
199.
199.9. Don't think last week's went through, so I'll double and try again. Get great words to live by, one day at a time. I always liked this too shall pass. That's one of my favorites as well. Thank you, brother. That works for life. That term works for life in the bathroom. Toxic Man Flu for $10. Comics division is only half as bad as other humans. Xray Girl, next time produce for a midget and your stress levels will be cut in half.
God.
If Ian sees this, he'll only get half as angry as normal people.
So adorable.
That's how Toxic Man Flu does it.
Yep. Jose Ataka for $1. I lived in Turkey for 2.5 years. It's an experience to remember. Tip 1: don't trust the locals as far as what you could do. They will turn on you. Also, don't make a wrong turn or you'll end up in Syria like a couple of buddies of mine did. Yeah, don't end up in Syria.
Freaky.
Yeah,
that's freaky.
Okay.
Simon Ho for 5 Canadian pesos. Karahan Tepe is an ancient temple filled with angry, entitled women giving shit to people. Their tradition has been carried on to modern day Karens. Karen Tepe.
Zing. Pretty good. Pretty good.
Hey, you guys, read the book UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record by Leslie Kean. A credible, fascinating read. Leslie Kean's great. I haven't read it, but I will read that. I will absolutely read it. Is that relatively new? She's from the New York Times.
Her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Frizzy-haired lady. Yeah. She's great. She's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for reading my chat earlier. I'm going to college for how do you say that? Archeobotany. Okay, archeobotany.
Cool.
So that's really interesting that I'm going to dig into more. I'm inspired by the show and others. Oh, hell yeah. That's awesome. Well done. Well done. Toxic Man Flu says, it's just me, or does it look like Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen sold their souls for their success? Pineapple on pizza rules. Maybe, because you would have to be deaf to like their music, even in their prime. They're both from New Jersey and they both suck. They both like pretend to be like, we're with the working man and stuff. They were all rich kids. Fuck them. Fucking suck. Switzerland Play IT and the Rant for $1. Just want to point out, I don't care for religions, but jinns have no gender. Jinns are not demons. They are nor good or bad. And according to the Quran, they are smokeless fire creatures. Well, maybe this one took form. Who knows? Maybe that's the camera's interpretation. Yeah, I don't know if it's a woman or not, though. I didn't see any boobage. Did you?
No,
I didn't see any boobage.
Just kind of like a blob.
And I looked.
Yep.
I looked.
Just a blob. Oh, I was looking.
Cygnus next one. Book 1, The Voyage from a Farewell to Kings. I effing love Rush. Fucking love Rush. B-Chain 35. Honestly, their music was so good when I was stoned. I would just get ripped.
It's good when you're not stoned.
It's great when you're not stoned, but it was pretty good when you're stoned. Their older stuff. Sturgeon 510 for $199. Jerry was a race car driver, drove so goddamn fast. Andrew Matthews for £5 Please get Xray to watch Star Trek films while she is down in Texas. As her boss, she may stay a week longer than 5 minutes.
A week longer? No, I've fallen asleep already.
No, she wouldn't fall asleep. Okay.
Like the original.
How long are you here?
Till Thursday.
All right, we can watch, like, you're gonna fall asleep during motion picture, but not like Wrath of Khan.
It's a little slow.
I would
Wrath
say
of Khan's awesome.
Tuesday would be a good day to watch it, but then you're gonna be all on those streams. Maybe Wednesday. We'll see.
Well, no, we can watch it. I don't have to. I'm not going to be on them all day. I mean, each stream is going to get a couple hours. They're not going to get all fucking day. I don't want to talk about the election all fucking day. I really don't. I want it to be over.
Yeah. Well,
I
it's
just
not
want
going
it
to be
to
over
fucking
Tuesday.
over. But like, yeah,
Sorry.
I'm gonna do some streams.
Yeah.
But like, I have my limits on this shit. Like, I'm ready to move on.
I hit my limit on politics a long time ago.
Yeah, dude, I don't know how people do it every day.
Oh, me neither.
I don't understand.
Like, there's the highs of election season that grow channels and stuff like that, but to go back and then do it and then like go back and discuss congressional voting and stuff like that, which I know is important and everything, I'm just like, I'll watch Arcane season 2. That's what I'll do. Yeah, to do politics day in day out. How many political commentators lose their fucking minds? Look at Owen Benjamin. Look at what happened. Look what happened to Gavin. Like it gets to you after a while. It's a
lot of negativity.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking ugly. Diego Salazar for 2,000 Salazars. I'm going to say Salazars. I love the show, man, especially the time change. It's spring down here. Oh, yeah. I know it's spring down there because when I went to Peru, I was sneezing for an entire week. It's already dark and the temperature is spot on. And I went to the balcony with a Coke Zero and sat down listening to you while looking at the sky. All the love from Argentina. Based Argentina. Argentina. Hell yeah.
Oh, good.
Hopefully our leader will be better after a couple days.
Elon Musk and Ron Paul getting together for Doge, Department of Government Efficiency.
Dude, that gave me a political Woody.
Sorry, I'm just like amazing.
It did. Fucking Ron Paul. Got Rand Paul in there too. Don't forget Rand. We love Rand.
Oh yeah.
Ron Paul's like the only politician I've ever like genuinely like been a huge fan of.
I like Thomas Massey, dude.
I like Thomas Massey. Chip Roy's pretty good. That's my rep. Look into Chip Roy. He's fucking funny. He's good.
Nice.
He's a Texan.
Right.
Yeah.
We got Jose Taco as well on the Streamlabs for $1 saying, sorry, the San Antonio Egypt thing is not free, but there will be a dinner and drinks Q&A.
Okay. There you
That's
go.
good
It's
stuff.
not free. You got to pay up, but there's dinner and drinks. All right. Adam, what do you got coming up?
Oh, I'm just trugging along with my show. I'm just trying to sneak in sleep as much as I can. Yeah, I don't know. I'm waiting until there's some semblance of routine because having a 2-month-old is time consuming and tiring. I would have loved to read more of this book for today's interview. I feel like it was good, but I just I don't know. I'm just kind of doing my show on the Crigler Show on YouTube, Rumble, and X. I've also been streaming on X. Obviously, I'm going to be discussing the election, which, as much as everyone wishes it's going to happen, it's not going to be decided on Tuesday. There's going to be shenanigans, and I don't know how much I'm going to talk about it because I have 5 strikes on my channel because of the 2020 election, which, of course, in hindsight, I've been since proven correct on everything that I've been given strikes on. But YouTube is going to YouTube. So, but I'm just going to keep doing my thing. Yeah,
All I'll say is this.
The Crigler Show.
I agree, Adam. All I'll say is this. If there's shenanigans, and I'm talking to you, Democratic Party, because I know you're tuning into the show. If there's shenanigans, that's going to come back and bite you in the fucking ass someday. I would hold off on the shenanigans and I'd let the vote go as it will and let the American people decide, because if you don't, there'll be consequences.
No,
There's
I think
to every action.
they can't do it. They can't handle.
They can either.
They can't cheat enough, man.
Well,
Look at this.
There's also a recognized like of overreach, and once you set a precedent for one side, you set it for another. So there was that Somali guy talking about like once you censor one side of speech, well, it's only a matter of time until your group, which you think is totally fucking safe, gets censored.
Yep, exactly.
And then the whole system breaks down, and that's what the powers that be want. They want us to not trust elections so they can then call us enemies. And then they can start enforcing more control over us. So, like, I mean, it's fucking rigged from the start. I hate to say it, but it's rigged from the start.
Is.
But
100%.
They used to have a balanced rigged, if that makes any sense. They broke that model over COVID, and we'll see what happens. We'll see. But again, if there's fucking shenanigans and it's as bad as it was last time,
yeah,
I don't even want to say right now. But you know what I'm thinking.
I think Trump is going to overwhelmingly win, and Sweden. So I was just talking to. I was at a store, and there was this older guy, and I bought this magazine. Now this is
that's in Sweden.
This is Sweden, right? And it's an entire magazine, complete, no ads at all, just full on Trump. It says U.S.'s most controversial president, but it's like I didn't see a Kamala magazine. I saw this, and I'm like, holy shit!
Not even close to being the most controversial.
That's
Learn some history, people.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that this is sitting there on the shelf in a small little town, like it wasn't a big city, not a big city, a small little town. I'm like, the writing's been written. They know he's gonna win. And the old guy, he was like, oh, obviously, I asked him like, is English all right? And he's like, yeah, that's fine. And he kind of looked at me. He was like, what do you think? Who do you think's gonna win? And I'm like, you see, I'm buying this magazine. Like Trump's gonna win.
Trump.
And he goes, good. And I'm like, yeah, awesome.
I think
based old dude in the middle of Sweden.
Hell yeah, absolutely. Go out and vote. Even if you're in a blue state, go out and vote. Just vote.
100%.
Vote for whoever the fuck you want.
It counts. It counts to the popular vote, no matter what state you're in.
Yeah.
So put it for Trump, even if you think it's a losing battle.
And you're also seeing like kids dress up as Trump for Halloween, and it's not like a meme. It's a reverence meme, and you're seeing people able to wear their hats in areas without getting assaulted and shit.
It's
and
cool
sure,
to be a Trump
there's always
supporter
going to be some fuck ripping down signs on both sides, honestly. But like it's more acceptable now because the propaganda broke. Like what I talk about, like Trump broke Hollywood in 2016. If you want to like a single answer on what happened, there's a lot of shit. It was death by 1,000 paper cuts, but that straw that broke the camel's back was fucking Trump broke Hollywood. And that reverberated through the culture. It also broke Silicon Valley, and to the point where they're like Jeff Bezos is now, all these fuckers do this. They just see where the winds of change going. Where's the most money going to be made? They thought it was going to be DEI. They were wrong. They see the culture shifting. All of a sudden, they're like, hey, we have to be here for all Americans now. You're hearing all this fucking bullshit from fucking Bezos and
that
Zuckerberg.
Statement that he put out. Oh,
yeah. It's like, you fake pieces of shit.
Shut the yeah.
And he all did it because of Elon, by the way. Elon, because you know what, these billionaires, they've got everything in the world. So they just like they're rivals with each other, and they hate seeing Elon being the cool kid, the cool billionaire. They fucking hate it, and they want it.
You can't buy admiration.
You can't buy
and respect. No.
Has to be earned.
Well, yeah, Jeff Bezos, Rings of Power,
and Wheel of Time. Sorry, I got to add that.
And Wheel of Time. And Wheel of Time.
I love Wheel of Time. I've got all the books behind me, and
I'm gonna read the books. I'm gonna read them. I'm gonna get through them.
They're amazing. Books.
I gotta say, like, I started Wheel of Time, and I'm enjoying it more than I did Dune. So I can do movies. Not a big fan.
Very descriptive. Robert Jordan goes above and beyond describing everything, and you have to
don't mind that.
Once you learn how. Oh yeah, okay. Well, if you're okay with it, then
that book actually like goes somewhere. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, but it's fascinating stuff. I got to reread that. It's been like a decade.
Yeah, that show was terrible. Xray Girl, what do you got coming
up? Tomorrow on my channel on YouTube, I am going to be live for the Rivendell Lego build.
He got it out of storage.
Yes.
Well, they did.
Yeah.
Dated.
By the way, his
I've never
storage
seen
is
my storage. I don't even
beautiful.
know where it is.
I love his storage. I could
Oh,
I
you
could
do?
just stand there looking at all the things in there. But anyways, I just really want to read the comic books. But yeah, it will be with Steph, my nerdy home, and Kara Lynn as well. So that'll be really fun. And yeah,
Cool
more
people.
streams to come once I get home. But there are a couple super chats that I want to get to, if that's okay.
Okay, that's of
We
course
got
it is.
Switzerland Play IT for $2 saying boobies here too.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, good.
Does
For
that mean you have boobies?
I think Switzerland is saying that they have boobies.
Switzerland has some good boobies.
Oh.
Not gonna lie,
okay.
man. Some good looking women in Switzerland.
And Razor Burn for 5 says modern day warrior means mean stride today's Tom Sawyer mean pride.
You should know this. You're Canadian. It's your fucking national anthem. Okay. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride. Ba, 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 ba.
Really,
Really,
Xray? What?
Wow.
Wow.
No. I lived under a rock, okay? It's fine.
No, his mind is
Wow.
not for rent. Come on. Now,
Wow.
now X-Ray
No.
Girl has to
Nothing?
listen on your
No.
entire way home. You're listening to nothing but Rush. And Mark, what the fuck is wrong with you? You're in Canada. You're in Canada. Like Rush
No,
should be
he's-
on all the time.
I mean, I know Rush Hour, the movie. Anyway.
Oh my god. You're digging a hole here, X-Ray. Wow.
I know what I'm
But
getting
actually,
you
I
for
do.
Christmas.
Vet's talking for $9.99 says, I'm shocked I didn't get a strike after last night.
I'm shocked either. Dude, thanks for having me on, by the way. I got to talk to the QAnon shaman, Adam,
Cool.
for the first time. QAnon shaman and Mike Harlow. Why am I saying Mark?
Mikey.
Mikey Harlow. Little
Yeah,
Mikey
he's
Harlow.
He's a wild one, Mikey.
He's straighter than Jeremy
He's
from
wild.
Geeks and Gamers.
That's a fact.
Just saying. No, that was a good show.
Vapor Trail-
That was fun. No, the QAnon shaman, cool dude. Really, really seriously cool dude.
He's in this book actually, somewhere. I saw
really?
the.
It's
Yeah,
fucked what happened to him. I'd love to talk to him about prison, but like it's a totally different perspective because like I should have been in and he shouldn't have been in.
right.
So
I'm
we
not gonna
talked a little bit
say
about
anything
it.
else about
Yeah,
that.
yeah, no, it's fucked up. what happened.
I may or may not have been in DC on January 6th.
You weren't. You totally weren't.
No, I very much was. Here he is.
There he is.
Oh, cool.
Boom. Also, that lectern guy who was I just interviewed. I'm gonna
He's
send him
cool
this picture.
too. He sent me
He's
a mini
very cool.
lectern. He sent me
Dude,
a
he's
mini
so
lectern.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, this dude's awesome. So
Yeah.
he's gonna be hyped. Be like,
Yeah.
hey, you're in a magazine in Sweden.
And there's a bunch of people still in jail.
Yeah, it's really messed up actually.
It's messed up. Hopefully, when Trump gets in office, that will change.
And also the
Hopefully.
fake Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping. There's a bunch of people in jail from that, which is really messed up too.
Really messed up because it was all
totally
fucking
different.
entrapment. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's insane. So
That's cops and FBI have been doing that for years.
Decades,
Years,
probably.
decades. Yes.
I'm sure.
yes.
yeah.
Well, which,
Justice for
speaking of,
Peanut, by the way. We didn't mention Peanut. R.I.P. Peanut and Fred.
R.I.P. Peanut and Fred.
And
Fred. I'm sure
I mean,
there's more.
like they came out and they said they don't know for sure if they've been euthanized, but they probably have. And the fact that it doesn't matter. It sucked that people had to explain this on Twitter, but I also understand and I thank them for it. It's not about the squirrel as much as we love the little cute squirrel. It's about they were in their house, their home was invaded by the fucking government. And I know the Karen who ratted them out, like her face is being put on Twitter. No,
Yeah.
put the judge who signed the order all over fucking Twitter. Make sure that fucker's voted out of office.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
people
A
involved.
lot of people involved. The Karen, she's famous now, and life is full of choices. And boy, she made one, and now she's going to regret it. But it's about that. And like, oh yeah, there was this place called Ruby Ridge and Waco. These not seven, it's more than that. The burned to death children are welcoming Fred and Peanut into heaven right now. That were burned to death by our government. So yeah, it's been going. That's another thing that's going on. I'm glad. Like, I think it would be hilarious if this shifted the election. Sorry for Peanut and the couple who rescued him. That's fucked up. Unbelievably fucked up. And we should all like, if for any motherfucker out there going, why are you enraged about this? Like, don't vote, please. Don't vote. Fucking go home. Stay in your house. Don't fucking vote. If like everybody should be enraged. Fucking William Shatner just tweeted about it. He's enraged about it. The fucking captain. God damn it. So R.I.P. Peanut.
R.I.P. Peanut. LJR for 2 Australian says Trump 2024. Vote, vote, vote. God bless this show.
Thank you.
And Vapor Trails for 199 says Hollywood should be called Diddywood from now on.
Yeah. Or diddly.
Ew.
A lot of diddling going on. All right. Thanks,
Yes.
everyone. Thanks to the Nerdrotics. Thanks to everyone on the super chat and donation. You help keep the lights on. Look at all those F's for Peanut and Fred.
All right.
And great job by my co-hosts today. Fucking fantastic. This was a fun show. Thank you again for Andrew Collins coming on, and we'll see you next week
With Luke Caverns.
Luke Caverns.
Oh, he's got stories.
Travels. He's gone places.
Peru. He was in Egypt. Man, I'm
Guatemala.
hyped to see him. Awesome.
Once I get Penguin done, I'm gonna in little pieces. I'm gonna be editing this, so I'm gonna put together our. It looks like an hour-long video of
the
our
Peru trip
adventures. Yeah, you know what?
Good.
I the other guys could edit it, but I want to edit this one.
Cool.
This harkens back.
Apologies in advance for it sucking.
It's gonna totally suck. It's gonna totally suck.
Just kidding.
It's gonna totally suck.
Or maybe I don't know.
Well, you get to see like I for the first time I'll get to edit something like I got to edit when I worked in Hollywood for a couple of years. This will be like, it's not like just a video. This will be like a mini doc.
I love that,
and that was my strength. You know.
So, cool.
Yeah. So it's been.
I'm just saying we're spoiled with Perry Chan.
No, it could suck. Fucking Perry's good, dude. No. Before we go, just to let you know, Perry wasn't an editor before. Like he was an artist. He was an artist who worked for a company. I'll just say a company. He was an artist who worked in an industry for a company, but he wasn't really an editor. This is shit he taught himself when he started doing the clips for FNT and worked it out. Yeah.
It's the best. That's how it's done right there.
So he's like,
he's an all natural talent.
All natural talent. All God-given talent.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
All right, guys. Ciao.
See you next week.
Bye.
Nerdrotic.com.
Welcome, travelers, to the fringes of reality, where the strange and mysterious meet, and the thin veil between fact and fiction is torn. Welcome to the Forbidden Frontier.